Okay. Hi there.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Recording in progress.
Hong is on, Eric is walking in and Lydia's just walking in, and Hong is on Zoom.
He's on now?
He's on Zoom. And I don't believe these are for me, unless I've been
Oh, no.
promoted already. Do I need to know something?
Exactly.
I'm here.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Tran. We'll be right with you.
Good evening.
Isn't it 5 o'clock?
Yes,
Evening.
it is.
Hi, Susan.
I was just gonna send you a,
Yeah, like where the heck am I? I was late.
I told you I was gonna be late.
I knew you were going to, but you're not, so.
Yeah, I was
I'd have
trying
been
to,
even earlier back in school, but
trying to get rid of her teleporting secret that she won't. No, I got my in first today, so sorry, I was busy.
We know what's important.
It's purses. Yes, actually, I got 2 here. I haven't even taken all this stuff off.
All right, everybody ready? All right, it is, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 26th special meeting of the Federal Way City Council for purposes of budget discussions. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone. We can move now to item 3. We'll skip the introduction by Brian Davis, our interim city administrator, and go right into department presentations. It's not a department, but it's an entirely separate branch, the Federal Way Municipal Court. We're here with our presiding judge, Judge Dave Larson, and we also have Judge Brad Bales with us as well. Your Honor.
I apologize on behalf of Judge Bales and apologize on behalf of me. He was on he's on vacation, so he won't be joining us.
I see. Wait.
So, but thank you for the opportunity. We don't get to talk to each other that often in a public setting, and like Jim or Mayor Farrell, we're like the offensive lineman of government. We only get noticed when we jump off sides, right?
That's right.
But tonight, it's an opportunity for us to discuss some important stuff, and I know that time is important, so I'm gonna try to get through this as quickly as possible and give an opportunity for questions. As we go through this, I'm not trying to look just now, but into the future too. This is kind of the overview of tonight, and I wanted to put faces on the people that work for our city. They're really the assets of our court, the court administrator, the 2 supervisors, and the judicial specialists, as well as the probation folks. So we have 16 FTEs, including the 2 judges in municipal court. The gratitude has to do, and again, Brian Davis and Mayor Farrell, especially thankful to both of you for helping with the transition to the new public defenders. It was excellent, and they're doing a great job, and so much appreciated. Thomas and his crew, and then you guys approving the expenditure for Oak Court, it's made a big difference for us. The investment you made to allow us to have Zoom hearings is significant. We do have one little loose end, and that's the $20,000 needed for some courtroom technology to make it easier for the lawyers to interact in court. The police department has been working with us for years on jail alternative subsidies to make it easier to give jail alternatives and keeps jail costs down. Mayor Farrell, again, thank you for approving the domestic violence assessments. What happens is we got people that are indigent, they can't afford to get an assessment. So the city subsidizes the initial assessments, which gets them on the track of treatment. And a lot of cities don't do that, our city does. So thank you for that leadership, Mayor Farrell. And then last fall, when you supported the sequential intercept model and the acceptance of that grant, that's put us on track with our sequential intercept mapping, as well as we've now in our second quarter of, or just finished our second quarter of using Peer Kent. The reason I'm so excited about being here tonight is I want to share the things from a big picture standpoint. There's the temptation is to get into what's our budget, how much are we going to spend, how much does it cost. And the thing is, the court's only 1.25% of the budget, but the impact we have on the community or don't have on the community is significant on the public health and welfare. So the issues that I'm talking about are extremely important. So, of course, behavioral health and crime are a big issue, and we're working in the court and have been working for quite some time to have it be a regional approach, and we're successful in getting the legislature back in a couple years ago with 5476, that Senate Bill 5476, to recognize that we need local money to help this regional issue, and that's how our peer navigators and the sequential intercept mapping was funded through that. It's the first time the state's really devoted money to local courts to allow us to kind of to operate in a more regional approach. And then the lack of a regional and local coordination among all the different players here. And the sequential intercept model will really bring us together. What I'm concerned about an impact and the impact we're going to experience is when Seattle, with their new city attorney, when they cramp down a little bit more, and if other cities take a tougher stance. It's basically a game of ping pong. We just bounce people back and forth among jurisdictions. And whether or not we experience that, only time will tell. And we may be experiencing it now. But basically, the tendency is to, in some cases, is to try to sweep it under somebody else's rug, and we can't do that anymore. We have to work regionally, and we are doing it in our courts, and I'll share that. So from the standpoint of a person that appears in court, the fragmented intervention doesn't really help them. So it contributes to the revolving door that we see. And so when everybody sees the same issue, but we all have a different idea about how we approach it, and we have to come together in a way that makes sense to deal with this. And that's what we've done in this city, with the passage of that resolution, the acceptance of that money with the sequential intercept mapping that we're doing and everything is really kind of on the forefront. So my attitude's always a problem's just an invitation to a solution, and that's what we're trying to do. And then obviously the price of greatness is responsibility, and the responsibility lies with all of us. And so back in 2017, we had a forum where we proposed a unified approach to the addiction and mental illness. And the court has done a lot since then, including our community court and a number of things that I'm going to share. These key partnerships include Peer Kent, and we also partner with Des Moines, and Renton was able to get a peer also. And then also with King County, we've had an arrangement with them for a couple of years now for pretrial assessment and linkage. Again, this is what it does, is it gets people assessments within a very short period of time and gets them on the road to recovery, but it also deals with wraparound education, employment, and it doesn't cost the city any money. Scores jail programs that they have that we aren't being charged for, except for obviously the daily fee that the city pays. We're in close cooperation with them on jail reentry issues. Multi-Service Center is a partner. Ideal Option, a new player in town for treatment and medication-assisted treatment's a partner. New Connections, Orion Industries for employment for some of our folks. South Seattle College for the same thing. And again, the Game of Life and Phenomenal She, and then our volunteers. This is what ended up, but that's just a kind of a tip of the iceberg. This is the mapping of the sequential intercept mapping that came out of our sequential intercept workshop. You can see the amount of services and things that are out there that are available that we haven't even tapped into. And we can tap into these things because when it comes time to coordinate and partner with these folks, and that's what we're trying to do. So peer support services, the quarter one wasn't a full quarter. You can see in the second quarter it served 600 people. There's 287 ongoing relationships. And in our court, thanks to you for allowing that grant to be approved, people can come in, they can have a traffic ticket, they can, for whatever reason, and engage with the peer. And what ends up happening is what happens is they are aligned then with services and the things they need to keep them moving on. And so it's been one of the more effective things we do to engage a maximum amount of people. And we'll go over that in a minute. It's not a panacea, but it certainly is an effort. We're about to sign an interlocal agreement, and I wrote the law, so it doesn't require council approval. It requires just the courts, the presiding judges to agree, as long as we don't spend money. And to a degree, probation's been doing a lot of this, just this formalizes it and allows these different cities when we join to, if we have the same person, to have one department supervise them and report back to the other court. And for that person, it makes a huge difference because they're not reporting to 3 or 4 different probation departments with 3 or 4 different directions. And so it increases their success. So we're about to enter into that quickly. This right here is our resource center that's actually completely coordinated by and replenished by our own staff and one defense attorney. Judges can't ask and courts can't ask for support from the public. We can't go to Kiwanis and say, give us money. We can't go and do fundraisers and those type of things. I will say, though, that support in this area would be appreciated if it came in another form. So coordination is the key, and the sequential intercept model, which I've explained earlier, is going to be the way that we can do this. We need county and state support for that to happen. It's, like I said, it's a regional issue, not a local issue. And then on October 28th, I'm speaking to the Washington State Association of Drug Court Professionals and the drug court folks, Washington Association of Drug Courts, on the use of sequential intercept model, and Representative Roger Goodman will be speaking with me on the need to create regional resource networks that we can use peer navigators to plug into so that each city is not responsible for ramping up those kind of services, whether it's the police department, social services, the courts, or whatever. And the approach, again, this is the sequential intercept model with all the intercepts, and then the regional resource networks that could be established with existing resources, just pulling people together in a more coordinated way. And so you can imagine that each of the intercepts are an off-ramp, and if we don't do something, it's just continuing down the lane of disaster. And then the lack of coordinated approach ends up with people that are trying to make change and when it's not coordinated, we only deal with pieces of them, and they never really get fully on their feet, and they end up coming back to us. Again, it's early strategic and coordinated intervention is necessary because when we do that, each time that we provide a method for people to engage, then there'll be more people that drop out of the system. And this is where the strategy comes in, because you have to ramp up the response each time they come back. We start right now with a punitive approach and then go to therapeutic, when in reality it should start with therapeutic and go to punitive, to where all of a sudden we're able to truly address the needs of the people that we see, and we're pushing the impacts to the community back to where they need to be, which is those individuals dealing with whatever behavioral health issue they are and not causing the impacts in the community. Really what it comes down to in the strategy is, and this is what I've been trying to do for years, is separate the can'ts from the won'ts. Okay, the social services and coordination isn't the panacea, it's not the answer, but it is a way to have people exit the system that are truly motivated by that in what they're doing. The people that are going to be left over are the people that the punitive system is designed for. And the reason for bringing this up is there's going to be, again, future impacts. Peer services evaporates as of 2023 unless the legislature provides more funding for that, so we will no longer have peer services. There'll be no coordination of services if we don't pull off this regional resource network. And the number one recommendation of the Homeless Commission was to have coordinated services, and we don't have that yet. We'll remain fragmented and we'll remain kind of in the status quo. And so with that, I'll open it up to questions. And the reason for bringing that up is I'm trying to have us look big picture. A lot of the things we're doing are from outside sources that allow us with our city not to have to spend money locally to deal with those issues. So are there any questions?
All right, Council President Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Judge Larson. A couple of questions. One kind of softball question. You
Sure.
said you needed supplies for the court. You can't ask for that, but is that something we can ask clubs for?
You can fund it or you can ask for it.
Okay, so I think I would need a list of things that you're looking for. That would be helpful. You don't need to ask for them. I just maybe.
That would be asking for them, but.
I know, so. I'm
That's
trying
the
to
awkward
figure-
part.
I'm trying to figure out how we could do that without asking. Maybe you could make a list of what you have, and that way I'll know.
I think community services coordinating with probation might be a way to, Sarah, maybe
I'll ask Sarah.
Bridgeford talking to
Thank you.
probation.
Do we-
Might be a way to get that list.
Mhm.
Do
Go
we
ahead.
know ballpark what that figure would be?
No.
Well, just give them
Put it this way, any amount that might be put towards it would be something that would be significant. Now, again, it's even $1,000 would make a difference, but and what we do is that basically it's to get people through crisis is what we're doing, and so, even some small amount would help.
So maybe our mayor could find 1,000 somewhere in our.
Yeah, and I think if Sarah Bridgeford and Stacy Scarpacci speak together, I think they could probably come up with a list if
Thank you.
that's permissible.
I consider that done, Your Honor, even if it's 2 or 3 times that amount.
I appreciate it, but
course.
the thing is, what I want to do is I want to make sure that you're proud of your own people that work here, our staff.
Thank you.
Especially our probation supervisor, Stacy Scarpacci, who put that together.
Okay.
And there's one of our public defenders, Ed Nelson, that voluntarily puts things in. But we can't pressure people as judges, and we can't do that kind of
course not.
stuff, so.
No, but I think I can pressure the mayor to give you a couple thousand.
Sounds like you already did.
Exactly.
So,
We're
anyway,
going for 2.
but,
I'd,
yeah.
I'd say, let's shoot for around 2,500. Sarah, will you coordinate with the court? Maybe 2,500 or 3,000?
I don't know if I put her on, well, I guess I did put her on the spot, but,
Oh, good.
Well, what type of things are needed?
well, there's socks, underwear, water, hygiene kits, there's little snacks, those kind of things that they have, food stuff, non-perishable foodstuffs that they can eat, that if you like, I can go back and, that, I can send you the picture, and you can come down and visit and see what's there,
Yeah,
but
I think I saw some
just-
shoes
But
there.
bottom line, if you can imagine anything that somebody might need kind of in a, ponchos for the winter and those kind of things. Those are the kind of things that are there.
So here's the mechanics of how this is going to work. I want to get into the questions again. But once Sarah sends myself and the full council an email and works with Brian, what we'll do is we'll incorporate this into the budget. Let's ballpark around 3,000, and then we'll talk about how we can procure.
Okay.
Council President, did you have any more?
I do.
Okay,
I would like to know, on the sequential intercept model, when they're in court and they're going to go one pathway or the other, the first person that is going to direct them, who is that again?
So physically, the way we handle it is the pier will be, they're co-located here at the court. They're on Zoom, so anybody that's on Zoom can have a breakout room. Anybody that's here can go see them. But we give the opportunity to kind of make sure everybody knows about it, and it's all confidential so that they don't report back names or anything, and so the trust
Yeah,
and everything's
no,
there.
I'm really
Anyway.
just asking, what group are they, who do they work for?
Pier Kent, which is we have a contract with Pier Kent,
So
and the Pier
Kent-
Navigators work for
So
them.
going back to Pier Kent, is that one of those RCP programs? Is that an individual from the city of Kent? What is Pier Kent?
No, Pier Kent's part of Pier Washington, which just got the Recovery Navigator contract with King County, and they're opening the Recovery Navigator down by Costco, I guess. So this is a separate nonprofit that they're not involved directly in the justice system. They only take people, they can take people off the street too, but
Okay.
they're
Is there money
basically,
coming from King County, or is there money coming from the state?
the money's coming from the state, the grant that
State
you guys
legislature.
approved last year.
Okay.
And it's good through 2023, yeah. So,
Thank you.
anyway,
That's it. Thank you.
any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll have the Deputy Mayor, then Councilmember Sefa Dawson, Councilmember Walsh, and then Councilmember Tran. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Thanks, Judge, for being here. So the things you just mentioned are things that service groups like to hold drives for. So hopefully, in addition to the funding, we can get service groups to hold drives.
Yeah, if they do it on their own, because, and they decide to do it and donate it, then we can, but as long, if the court can't be directly involved.
Right, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Sefa Dawson.
I think Councilmember Walsh was ahead of me.
Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah. Hey, with the, back to the, well, hold on here. Back to the peer navigation funding that it's just funded through 2023.
Right.
If the state doesn't renew it, how much is needed for that?
It was about 248,000, but that's because Des Moines also has a .6 FTE. We partnered with them. We have a 1.0 FTE. It's about 85,000 a year per peer navigator. So it'd be about an $85,000 if the city just had its own peer navigator. But the problem with the city employing its navigator, you don't have that separation that builds the trust and everything. So there could be a grant, though, that would pay for it, so
Okay.
like Peer Kent.
So, I mean, if the state were, it seems to me as though the state will likely fund it again, I would
The
hope.
courts are asking for 21.9 million for this type of thing, but all the programs that the courts are doing are fragmented too. I'm asking for a demonstration project for Pierre Kent to manage that resource network and the warm handoff from the courts that are on that interlocal agreement would be all cooperating together, so Pierre Kent would hand people off to a unified kind of regional network. And by the way, I got to give kudos to the police department too, because they met with Pierre Kent, and as far as intercept one of the sequential intercept model, they're referring people to Pierre Kent too at no cost to the city.
So
I
if
want to make sure that's mentioned. Go ahead.
So if the state didn't fund it, and the city had to fund it, could we just contract with Pierre Kent?
Yes,
then,
yes, that would
rather
be,
than having our
that
own?
would be
Yeah.
probably the best way to do it, if that happened. My hope is that the state sees this as, stops putting it on local jurisdictions and sees it that they, because we're just gonna keep pushing it back and forth, that they see a need to have a way that, to get the burden off the local cities so that we have a way that we can deal with this issue and not, and it would add that consistency that we don't have now. Anyway.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Councilmember Seffa Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Judge Larson, for the presentation. I do appreciate your compassion for the people that come before you and for you treating me humanely. I'm sorry. So I have a couple of questions. One is around 988. So do you know if it's been going well, if there's been glitches, and how it works?
I'm not directly involved in 988, so I don't know the answer to your question. I know it was mentioned by a few of the legislators that I've been meeting with and talking with, that it's part and parcel of what we're trying to do with the sequential intercept model too.
So would that be intercept 0 then?
Yeah.
If it were to, okay.
Yeah.
And with Pierre Kent, I noticed that in your report, between Q1 and Q2, there was a huge jump.
Right.
Do you know why that?
Some of it has to do with figuring out how the best to do it, and some of it has to do with it wasn't a full quarter. I think it was only 2 months in that quarter. And so I think once you got in the swing of things, it became, and it's not just us, that's also Des Moines. Des Moines, we have 1.0 FTA, Des Moines has 0.6. Renton, they got additional, or Pierre Kent got an additional grant to give 1.0 FTA to Renton. And the point of that is those peers are working together with the people that all of us see too. So so it's not just Federal Way, it's those two, mostly Des Moines and Federal Way, because Renton just started.
Thank you. And then finally, you may not have the answer for this, but the cities like Auburn that did not sign the ILA, do you know why they don't participate?
They're serviced by district court, and we're starting with municipal courts first. And then if it works well, we'll branch into district court. District court is a little bit different to deal with in terms administratively. So we're going to start simple with the courts that are easy to work with, and then we'll switch to King County. And I'm saying that because there's 26 judges in district court, and there's a lot of different voices that need to be heard, and it'll take a little more time.
Thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor?
Councilmember Dovey has.
Councilmember Dovey?
Yeah, I just need something clarified for me. So when I look at the expenditures, and maybe that's what we're talking about, the $85,000 and all.
Per year, yeah.
Yeah, but you got, in 2023, you're down $267,000.
In what?
Well, and I'm looking at the budget, it says proposed change, it goes from 409 projected to 141. In the line
Where's that at?
Services and charges. Am I looking at something incorrectly?
I don't have it right in front of me. It's, is that an expense
It says,
or a revenue?
it's code 4XX, service and charges, and in 2022, it was 409,000. It was adopted 116, went to 409, and it says up here, eliminate $267,000.
It could be because
Steve,
they gave us all the money this year.
Well, yeah, but if
Is
they
that what it
gave
is?
you all the money,
Hold on, let's make sure we're on the same page.
Am I-
Steve Groom, do you have that on the book?
Yeah, that was a grant that was in 2022, so it appears as a decrease to 2023. It's just a non-recurring grant.
but, okay, I guess my question is that the money that went to peers?
Part of
Am I
it, yeah,
miss-
because we also did sequential intercept mapping too.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, where are we gonna, if the program is so good, and it looks like it's effective, and we're not budgeting the 267, are we just hoping the state gives us the money, or are we?
And that's why, that's going to be my understanding would be a 25, 26 kind of a budget issue, or would be.
It looks to me like
Or
it's 23,
24, yeah.
Is that a grant that we've applied for and we're not gonna budget until we get it?
So this year, this grant expires and you're correct, Councilmember Dovey,
Yeah.
that this grant will expire in the middle of the biennium for us. And this year, there's strong support for us for the courts getting that 21.9 million. If
Right.
we can get that demonstration project to where those courts work together, then that'll fund, and that will fund the peer navigation from the state. It would be, Peer Kent would be getting that grant directly to manage a network and then to manage the peers.
But
So that would be the answer.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, no problem.
But it seems to me if this is such a great program, and we're hoping the state funds it or whatever happens, if it doesn't happen, then the program's gutted.
Right.
And we as a budgeteer should be looking at, in my opinion, spending the 267,000 and putting it into that. And if we get the funding, then we can pull it back. But if we don't fund it, and we say, oh, let's wait on what the state does, or something happens, then we just gutted the whole program, right?
Well, part of why I'm here and why I'm talking about this, because I want your help. Because I want your help to get that state money.
Well, but we don't control the state.
no, I
We only
understand.
control what we can control.
I understand. Yep.
I mean, that just, when I look at it, if this is such a great program, and it seems like it is, and we're not willing to make up the 267,000 in our budget this year, hopefully get the money from the state, but if we're not putting it in there, then we've gutted the program, haven't we?
Councilmember, I would just say that it's our practice to only budget grants when they're approved. We don't budget for,
But you're missing my point.
I know, I understand, but you're saying you want to put the expense in. And
Well, I understand we don't budget unless we get a grant.
right, so that would be an unfunded
It's an unfunded,
expense. But I
if we
also
don't
thi-
budget it, we can't give the money, because we're gonna give it to something else, and the program will fall by the wayside.
Well, and I also think that we course correct pretty
Well-
much continually, so
Can that be handled in a budget adjustment if we, in the
the
middle of?
question comes back on where the funding comes from. So it's important to use these study sessions to flesh out all the things that we need to know that are possibilities and what's not in the budget, that sort of thing, so that they're on our radar.
I just would prefer that, if it's important, we budget now, and then we can always take the money back. But if we're gonna wait on somebody else and it doesn't happen, you're gonna be standing up here going, hey, I need to keep this going, what do you wanna do? And we're gonna say, we already budgeted the money, where are we gonna find it?
I will say that, and I'm not going to bet my life on it, but I will say I feel pretty good about the legislative support and the support we have from the governor's office for that renewed funding. But I could have foot and mouth disease, but I do, anyway.
Okay.
Can we put it in our legislative agenda?
We could, let's get to Councilmember Tran. Councilmember Tran?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question already been asked, so I don't have anything to ask. But I just want to say thank you, Your Honor, for your good work for the community, and that's all I have for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And thank you. What I'm really trying to do is get stuff for Federal Way that doesn't require us to come up with the money locally. But I think I want to call you Mayor Dovey because he was Mayor Dovey when I got appointed. But Councilmember Dovey, I think it's a great question, but we're doing a lot of work in the courts to try to get this to work. And I hope that we can make, the idea of that demonstration project also is to have that be a permanent thing so that cities aren't having to come up with this money individually. So, anyway.
All right, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
So my questions were along the same lines as Councilmember Dovey's, and I think it's worth a discussion of perhaps putting it in the budget so that we know it's there and it's safe. But thank you.
The problem with that is, you know, at a couple $100,000, it's a lot of money, and so then that then takes away other opportunities. That, I mean, that's probably 2 FTEs.
And that certainly wasn't my intent this evening. My intent was to really, to talk about this stuff, because I really want to have us have a dialogue about how we can take this to the next level on the strategy of working with other cities, having the sequential intercept model be regional in approach, so that, and again, it's all about, because there's going to be people that are going to drop out of the system if we organize in the right way. The people that remain, well, then we're going to know who they are and who the people that didn't respond well. But I certainly didn't intend to come and ask for more money or to complicate things. But I think, Councilmember Dovey, I would invite a dialogue between you and I or anybody that wants to.
Hey, I'm okay with not budgeting it, but, you know, in a year from now, if the money doesn't come, it's a whole other
Yeah,
story.
I feel like I'm in Vegas right now, but
All right.
anyway.
Exactly. All right, Council President?
Well, I'm trying to determine, so this money is coming from the courts, being recommended through the courts in the state for
Yeah.
for this type of a program.
Right.
And is it to be used only for substance abuse and mental health?
So the money that's funding it right now came through that same bill that dealt with Blake, okay? And it's money specifically designed for therapeutic programs. And it was money given to the administrative office of the courts to then mete out to the local courts. We got some of that money. This next session, the courts are recommending, I think, $419,000 to come to Federal Way
Okay,
out of this next budget.
okay. So when you say they, who's the they?
The District of Municipal Court Judges Association, the Board of Judicial Administration, Administrative Office of the Courts.
So I'm trying to zero in on this.
Right.
So you got the peer-to-peer navigators who are trying to help them,
Right.
obviously get clean, because you're talking about substance abuse. That'd be a big part of it. Mental
Right.
health is part of it, but substance abuse causes
Right.
mental health. What we need are treatment beds. Is there any discussion of treatment beds?
That's outside, a little bit out our lane, but the thing with the PALS program that we have with King County that's, again, costing us nothing, we're getting people in inpatient in record time when we use that program. And,
Where?
They find the beds. I mean, some in Spokane, some in Chehalis, some locally, they find the beds.
Okay,
And-
so, all right. My understanding is that when you have somebody who is, you know, peer-to-peer has its value, but when you have somebody who's on drugs, hard drugs, because we've legalized hard drugs, well, for example, Oregon, less than 1% actually get help because they like to be high. You know, it's difficult unless you have a carrot and a stick. It's difficult for them to get, and then once you give them the carrot and the stick and they pick the carrot, then you have to have the bed to put them in.
Right.
And so part of what I see our problem is, if you have somebody on the streets, and they haven't even gotten into the court, but let's say they've gotten into the court, they don't know how to get help because there's nothing to tell them.
And the answer to that is exactly what I talked about tonight, because we are failing in this sense.
Okay.
We don't have things in a way where we can hand people off in a way that serves them.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is when it comes back to court with a probation violation, and they didn't do what they were supposed to do, but it wasn't available, how can I hold them accountable?
Exactly.
So that's exactly, and the state's trying to build up that network of services across the state to where there's community-based care. And what I'm trying to do is, instead of reinventing the wheel and creating a whole parallel system for courts and police, is just tie into that system using peer navigation.
Yeah, but boy, 475 or whatever, that's not gonna go anywhere.
No, and you're right, but it's all, to me, it's a change of
think
approach
it's
and
a
a change of attitude towards how we deal with it. Costs us nothing. And most of the time in court, my experience has been when I can get that person, when that person's ready, and I can line them up right away, it's successful. But you're right, I think I think there's room for hope in what I see every day. And I think but you're right, that
It's
there's been a
huge.
problem. But
It's a huge
since we have taken this kind of approach, we're seeing a lot more success.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, well,
Thank
we've
you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate
And
it.
sorry for taking longer, but this is 1.25% of the budget, but a huge issue for our community. I'm grateful to you, and let's continue the dialogue. I hope we can, in terms of trying to make this a reality for our community. We can really be a leader in the region for how to approach this, so I
Very good.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 2, Finance, Economic Development, Law, Information Technology, IT, Mayor's Office, Human Resources, City Clerk's Office, Economic Development, Emergency Management, and City Council. Brian Davis.
I'm doing all of those? Is that what you said?
Exactly.
Are these each individual?
Yeah. He's just gonna do them.
So what percent
Okay,
of the
yeah,
budget
just to
is
set
all
this,
those?
yeah, just to set the stage, so I'm going to go through most of the departments with the, I mean, an easier way to explain this, what I'm not covering, so I won't be covering parks, which will be at the end of tonight's agenda, and then at the next budget meeting, we'll have Public Works, Police, and Debt Service. So everything else I'm going to cover right now. There's a lot of content in these slides. I'm not going to read the content. It's there for your consumption, the public's consumption at your own pace. I'm just going to do a few highlights of those slides. If at any point you have questions, or at the end of each individual department you have questions, feel free to chime in. So let's get this going.
Brian, do
Yep.
you want us to wait till you're done with the department before we ask questions?
Whatever you'd like. I'm
Okay,
okay either way.
thank
Yeah,
you.
let's get through each department, and, go questions by department.
Sure, okay. All right, so these are the departments that the mayor mentioned at the beginning, and we'll go over them again. We'll start with finance. This is what finance does. They keep the operation going from a financial standpoint. They pay the bills, they account for the income, they make sure that we're running smoothly. These are the 9 people in the blue box that do all of that. They've done a fantastic job this year. They have reduced from 10 to 9 FTEs. They consolidated 2 positions into 1, and they rebuilt from the prior year turnover, which was a few years ago. I think almost the entire department turned over. So they've been doing a great job. And then most notably, the investment savings that have been brought up multiple times. The staff has been responsible for the city benefiting from that investment revenue. So kudos to the finance department on doing that. The biggest concern that they see is the city's financial system. This is the Eden software that is going to basically cease to have support in 2027. It mentioned all those functions that they do. This is the software that enables them to do that, and so this is a major expense. This is and the $75,000 at the end of this slide. That is just to determine. It's basically a needs analysis to determine what exactly the best path forward is to replacing this software. So it's going to be a major expense that we're going to have on the horizon, and something we need to think about in the future, in the near and long-term future as well, for ongoing maintenance and operation of the software. Questions on finance?
Deputy Mayor?
Do other cities have the same concern with the, whatever, the Eden?
Yeah, so that we just talked about that earlier today. There was another city in the Tri-Cities area that upgraded from Eden, and I don't know what year it was, but it was in the millions of dollars. I don't know if it, the figure is going to depend on how many modules that we use for the replacement. Something of that amount probably also includes something like permitting and other record keeping in the city that's not just finance. But it was a significant purchase that we saw by one of the other cities. So something to think about.
So there's only one other city in the state that uses that program?
That's just one that we know of. This is
Oh.
nationwide. The product is it's a nationwide product, and it's all going to sunset in 5 years. So we've got some advance notice, and we have our radar up to learn from other people's experience.
I think Lake Haven uses Eden Systems.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Walsh, then Councilmember Adobe.
Just a question with this Eden system, the sunsetting, was it is that normal for a program, that's used that widely to sunset? Or were, when we originally chose it, were we being penny wise and pound foolish and going with an off-brand or whatever that that didn't have the long-term,
Just to give you some perspective, so my prior city, when they changed, this was 10 years ago, when they changed their financial software, they went to Tyler. And so now we're talking about how federal way, how we're going to deal with that. So it is we weren't the only one buying into the system, and it was reputable at the time. It scored well when the other city did it, and so I have no doubt that when we made this decision in the past that it was well-founded. But software comes and go, so this is one of those situations that we got to plan for.
okay, thank you.
Councilor Dobie.
Kind of along the same lines, 75,000 for a consultant, is it in the budget right now to start?
That's
Yes.
this budget, yeah.
It is?
Yes.
Yeah.
And are we accruing, you said $1 million?
No,
To
that's, so
replace?
the $1 million that I talked about was what the other city had spent on the
I
replacement.
understand, I work in software,
Yeah.
and that's my
Do
realm.
you have a product we can?
No, I don't. But, I mean, are we budgeting up to $250,000 a year now for the replacement costs, just like we do for trucks and everything else? Is it in the
This would
budget?
this would fall into our long-term capital planning.
Okay, does that mean it's in the budget, or it's in the long-term capital planning?
We're
In 2
expecting
years,
it
we're gonna
5
get a
years out.
surprise?
We do not set money aside. We don't, that's not typically how we do our capital planning. We look at how much we're gonna be spending every year, year in and year out. Fold that in.
Well, it seems to me we know we're gonna have a big number in 4 years, right?
Correct.
And we have a $75,000 deal that's gonna cost us now to find out what we're gonna do in 2025, and it's gonna be 2 years to make the change, or whatever it is. It seems like we should be getting some reserves going on it.
And one of the things that we would be looking to do as we do our needs analysis is to make sure that we're covering all departments to see if there's project costing in public works or
Yeah.
planning and permits. And that would allow us to quantify it and plan well in advance. I think this will be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So, reducing a position in this department, does that position need to be replaced?
No,
No? Okay, that's not what we usually hear, so,
Right.
all right,
all
thank
right.
you.
Okay, I don't see any other lights on. Okay, great, let's move on to the next one.
All right, community development. By the way, the best department in the city.
Who runs it?
Okay. Goals, again, this is something that we shoot for every year. So we have a balance of trying to ensure that regulatory goals are being met, while at the same time providing a path for development to occur without getting too far in the way. And also promoting a good economy and jobs. On the community services side, community services, by the way, is in community development, so Sarah's group is part of community development. Addressing the basic needs, housing, health, hunger, promoting individual and community safety through prevention, intervention, and crisis services, and promoting stability and self-sufficiency. So this is the organizational chart. This next slide shows you some of the issues that we sometimes, and this is just community development, there's other departments that fall into this category. So the highlighted yellow positions are ones that are either vacant or the position has been there less than 3 months. So you can see that staff spends quite a bit of time on either covering for vacant positions or training new employees. And this is something that, again, this is not just unique to us, but it's just to give you an indication that there are, fully staffed, there still are some challenges. Key accomplishments, again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but one thing I will point out is that we do have more long-range planning efforts going on than I believe we've seen in a long time in Federal Way, and I'm really, really happy to see that. We've got some exciting things that we've talked to members of the council about, and so we're going to be working on that in the next while, specifically downtown redevelopment, and also the sub-area plan in the South Station area. We also do ongoing code amendments, which helps with both make us become into regulatory compliance, but also help the efficiency of the organization, because we can look at processes for a long time, but oftentimes the regulation needs looking at as well to help for efficiency. One thing I would note on here is the permitting for Woodbridge project. This was a controversial project, so regardless of your feelings on that, it was a Herculean effort by staff to get this project first decided on which direction it was going and then permitted. There was a number of appeals, number of permit reviews. To say this was a huge undertaking would be understating the significance of that. It was a big project, and it's still ongoing. It's not over, so that's going to be continued to be something that we look into. We also looked into, we also integrated funding as a result of COVID-19, and then finally, importantly, we expanded the diversity, equity, and inclusion program in the city, which started in community development and now is in the mayor's office under the city administrator. This is permit volume and revenue. The outlier obviously is 2020 when COVID hit, so that gives you an idea of what we are an income generating service, so we do get a modest amount of income from our permit volume. Goals, so we have in 2024, we're due for a comp plan update. That's required of the state. So whether we don't have any initiatives on our own, we still need to update our comp plan to be compliant with the state. So we're doing kind of a parallel thing where we're doing the compliance stuff, but also we're taking initiatives on our own that the council has said is important to them. And so we're moving on those as well. More downtown planning, and then we continue to work with South King Fire. They're a great partner. They're here in City Hall, and we work closely with them on permit review. On the community services side, we expect a number of grants, especially if we're implementing the ARPA, some of the ARPA social programs, or social services grants that we talked about during our last ARPA discussion. So that will be a huge effort for community services. The overall budget, what I would summarize in this slide is the second bullet point. So if you take out CDBG accounting, it's a federal accounting thing that sometimes throws off our numbers, and then also the COVID budgetary outliers from previous years. If you take all that out, this community development budget is basically status quo from the previous biennium. There's no staff increases from the previous biennium. So that is community development. Any questions on that?
Councilmember Savedasa?
Yeah, I don't see the EDI position. Is that under the mayor's office?
It is, yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Me.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I don't see, maybe I'm overlooking it, the shelters that are opening up, especially the one at Red Lion Inn, and what our responsibility might be there.
From a budgetary standpoint, what we would be doing, community services will work closely with the operator, but also a big part of that would be the licensing of the facility. None of them have requested occupancy yet, and it's at the occupancy stage that we then require the licensing, so we haven't got to that point yet. And so until they open, we don't have any licensing issues. But once that does happen, then there'll be the actual license itself and then monitoring of the facility. And then just the general partnership that we have with King County on these services, and then working with the operator itself.
So there's no budget impacts to us.
There's likely to be a slight increase in revenue, not much from the licensing, but as far as the monitoring goes, that's absorbed into the current resources.
So when especially the Red Lion opens as a homeless shelter, emergency shelter, the cost will be all covered by King County then?
Yeah, it's not.
Not-
I think we do have a share that we contribute towards the service, but I don't think that's changing if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to come up?
I just thought I'd double check because I
Yeah,
Didn't see it.
that was my impression. Sarah's coming to the microphone.
she needs a cape too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, here.
I would clarify that the Red Lion will be operated by Catholic Community Services. They will have to grant right for the operation of the Red Lion. So while the building is provided by King County, the operation, including costs of running that building, will be separate. A lot of that funding, they come from King County, as they are one of the largest funders of shelter. But this is different than the health through housing, where it's fully funded. The expectation would be that they will be seeking funds from cities and other funders as well.
So then they'll be seeking funds from the city of Federal Way to run the program at Red Lion.
Potentially.
So we,
Is it in the budget anywhere? We don't know how much it's gonna be.
It is not in the budget at this time.
Okay.
Council President?
so they have the tax money, the county does, and they're expecting us to run it? They use the tax money just to buy the building, but the Catholic Community Services is then gonna look for a grant to run it.
That's correct. This is separate than health through housing. So it's a different source of funding for the acquisition. There wasn't the tax that established health through housing.
Isn't it just so nice of the county to do that for us?
So what happens if we don't have the funding?
Well, I think that there'll be, this is just my take. I think that there's a resolve to have shelter, and King County will certainly, I would anticipate that they would be the largest funder of that shelter with their existing funding sources. I would anticipate that they'll come in with requests from cities and should be able to, find that funding, or private nonprofits, which is how they fund other shelters and other services. Typical of our nonprofits, for any service that they provide, it takes a lot of funding sources, unfortunately, to fully fund a service.
Okay,
All right,
Councilmember
thank you.
Councilmember Dovey, then Councilmember Norton.
My question had to do with the permit, my permit or whatever, is that the new system that's gonna make it simpler for people to request permits and not have to ask for an appointment to get a permit appointment?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
What we have right now was built basically in-house to help us out, help us stay open during COVID.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a Band-Aid that we're
Okay.
running on, so yeah.
That's gonna make it a lot simpler for
Yeah.
developers and everybody. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Norton?
Are we going to be, is it a possibility that we can decide as a city that we won't be paying for anything that has to do with the shelters or the permanent supportive housing, and that we've just decided that King County's paying for it, or else it just won't be open? And my other question is, from permanent supportive housing that I've worked around in Seattle, there's an exponential increase in police activity. So that's gonna be draining our resources as well. Are we planning on having a line item, on that, and asking for reimbursement? Or is that something that we've thought ahead about, or is that something that we need to talk about as a city council?
Well, I can start with, I separate health through housing and the Red Lion. Health through housing is fully funded. King County won't be coming.
Okay.
And the provider won't be coming for a request for services.
Okay.
That's a fully self-contained budget, so to speak. In terms of the shelter, I think it's probably a broader conversation. We previously had Reach Out, and that was a local seasonal shelter, evening only, lacked the comprehensive services that we really want to see people engage with to help them return to housing. And I think the loss of Reach Out, we should have a discussion on how we need shelter, what supports we might give, what that means to the city if we do support a shelter with a grant, in terms of having bed access for police and others in the city. Our Parks Department often encounters people living on the street that they want to connect to shelter. So I think at minimum, it's a conversation that we should have, that with the loss of Reach Out, how do we then have access locally to shelter and maintain control of having some of that access? In terms of permanent supportive housing and its impact on service calls for PD, there hasn't been a discussion at that point, and I've not heard King County offer funding for that purpose.
So can we anticipate it and say, hey, we're gonna keep track of this? And here's an example. So my husband was a mid to upper level manager at at the UW, and he managed buildings. So when they decided to open the needle safe injection sites, their crime increased quite a bit. Actually, it was interesting, a woman came in here and was complaining about an incident that happened to her. She's a professor at the UW, and that actually happened at my husband's building, and he was telling me about it before we came to the meeting that day. My question is, so they kept track of the trash, the needles, what they had to pick up, and how much it costs. They kept a separate system to keep track of it, so that the police knew how much extra work that they had to do, and then that way they could go back and talk to the county about it, about getting reimbursed. And I'm asking, is that something that you guys could think about or discuss? Because we're very tight with our budget.
So if I could follow up with a question on that situation that you described, did they submit reimbursement to the county, and were they reimbursed?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just asking
we could
you.
keep track of things that we observe and clean up, and submit for reimbursement. I don't know if we would get anything in return.
Well, is that something that can be negotiated prior to it taking? They created a nuisance, and they're getting ready to create a huge nuisance and danger to surrounding areas, and there's kids that live around there, there's a school right there. I mean, it's gonna be a lot of trouble. So my question is there some way, and I'm asking you to do more work? Yeah, because you could have a whole nother job, right? Is there some way we could get ahead of this and say, hey, this is what we've observed where your programs have affected the neighborhoods around them. Is there some way that we can offset these costs? Will you agree to help us? Because we can't afford to pay for what you're bringing to the table here. I'm just asking.
Yes, to answer your question, yes, we will look into that. That's a challenging issue that many cities face when they're trying to accommodate those, because it's a service that we could debate whether it helps or hurts, the community. If there's someone who needs shelter overnight, it's an immediate benefit, but then what are the effects that people observe, and they say that it's not a benefit to the city. So we could certainly look into, this isn't the only shelter that King County is doing, so we can look into what other ones they're working with cities on.
And I'm talking about the health through housing too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm talking about the permanent supportive housing.
Okay.
I mean, we already had a shelter here, and that's fine. I'm just talking about the permanent supportive housing and what I've personally experienced over the last couple of years working in and around those buildings. It's going to be, you guys are going to be really surprised unless you go up and check it out for yourselves up in Seattle.
I misunderstood, I apologize. So the licensing would have then applied to health through housing, and then in that case, there would be regulatory monitoring. I don't know if litter is covered, but we could certainly make sure that but the other things that you mentioned would be part of that licensing review.
Okay, thank you.
Council President.
So let me get this straight. So they bought a building, period. And it's going to be run by Catholic Community Services. It's up to Catholic Community Services to find the funding?
So we're back
Was
to
it up to
the
us?
red line, right?
I'm back to the red line,
Okay.
I'm sorry. So, I don't think Catholic Community Services is running the health through housing. I think
Yes.
they're the ones. So, what if they can't get the funding? What if the funding isn't there?
I guess we don't have a shelter.
Yeah, I think they're committed to.
But the county is just, literally, they kind of like plumped. We have an issue, a situation, and the county isn't providing the answer. They're saying, oh, here you go, you take care of it. But they took our taxes.
I just sent it.
It's not our facility.
Shelters are, they're a big endeavor to implement. The city had previously identified the need for year-round shelter, both through the task force, we identified it in the city council adopted CBG plan. But it's a big undertaking, just like the Fusion Family Shelter. And I think these are conversations that aren't tied as much to our budget
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, Sarah, I really appreciate that. But I think that when this was presented to the council, it wasn't explained to us thoroughly enough. In other words, I don't know what my expectation was, but I should have asked for more questions. If we gave them the taxes, the county, which we ceded the taxes over to the county for these housing,
Only for health through housing, not for the shelter.
well, then what money are they using to buy for the shelter?
They had identified other funding sources, and I believe that they received a grant through Commerce in the state of Washington to acquire that building.
And so when did they come to the council and talk to the council about how would you like to have this overnight shelter? I mean, I don't remember that discussion because we would have asked about money.
Well, we got briefed multiple times about the purchase of the red line. Say it's been kind of sort of in the works for a couple of
Right,
years
but
now.
my expectation was they were going to do it, run it.
So I guess I'm not understanding what the concern is.
Okay, so
It's not in the
there's
budget.
two components. No, it's not in the budget because it wasn't presented to us in that way. In other words, they purchased the building, but then now the building is our, apparently, responsibility to help fund.
No.
I think Sarah just said that it's the expectation of the cities to help fund these
Well-
Catholic community services.
But not an obligation. There may be an expectation, but not an obligation.
Okay, so then my question is, if we don't provide the funding and they can't get it, then what?
I think that's a conversation that is, something that we would deal with at that time. And
Is
that
there-
we as a city would participate to the extent that they want to.
Is there an ask before us right now?
No.
Right, therefore, that's not in the budget.
Right.
Right,
Okay.
okay.
And if it's not in the budget, there's no expectation that we're
Correct.
gonna fund it.
No.
Is that correct? I mean,
At this time, no.
no, at any time.
No. I don't
I
think
mean,
there's
there's no
an
ex- is it-
expectation.
Is there, I guess.
No,
if I
there's
could
no
jump in, I'm just
expectation.
Sorry.
Well, we've got,
we
one of the
might
things I was
fund
gonna
it.
say
Is
is
there
we've
an
got hundreds of thousands of dollars of human services dollars. And we actually now have money up to $3 million in human services dollars of ARPA funds.
I don't have a problem with any of that.
Well,
What I'm frustrated with is.
I do.
Go ahead.
$3 million in ARPA fund wasn't designed to give to the Red Lion for services. That would be a no-starter for me.
It's not our facility, it's not our program. It's not in our budget. Right. But they will shelter homeless individuals in our community when it gets cold. We're a city of over 100,000 people. This is it's gonna be the only emergency shelter in our city where people can go. So we do have human services dollars. We're not, there is nothing before the council right now for this ask. So it's not our facility. There's not an ask before us right now. Is that correct? Okay.
I agree with that. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just wondering where the money would come from, when it would come, and what if it wasn't there. But thank you. We'll look at it
Okay.
separate later.
All right.
Okay, Law Department has three main functions. There's this civil services, criminal prosecution, and risk management. This is what the civil side does. They're basically the legal counsel for the city and provides all legal advice on all these services to the city, the business of the city, including negotiating of contracts and any other inquiries of the city's business. On the criminal side, it's basically the prosecution of criminal offenses and infractions. They also help out with community court. And they also, as the judge mentioned, we had new software that come in that helped out with the new public defender. So they've been working on that as well. Risk division helps with, obviously, to reduce loss with claims for damages and other lawsuits against the city. This is one that is increase in expense to the city and is in the budget. We've increased the budget to help out with insurance rates. The trend is increasing, of lawsuits and the judgments that come out that cities have to employ, and then obviously inflation is impacting. And inflation is a theme that you're going to see throughout all these presentations. And then body cams, which are significantly increasing the amount of staff time required to charge and try criminal cases. Excuse me. Questions on the law department?
Council, any questions about law? Seeing none, go.
Okay, information technology. IT and the clerk and HR, they're kind of the ones that make if you increase in those, it affects the rest of us very positively. IT is no different. We did increase in the last budget staffing to help the the division, which is now a department. And that's been a huge help to the rest of the departments as well. That's the organizational structure. This is everything that they do. Again, I'm not going to read all of it, but please know that they are, obviously in today's day and age, they're integral to everything that we do. These are some of the accomplishments that they've done. Some that I would highlight are expanding the Safe City camera network. We formed a new business continuity and disaster recovery plan as a result of the IT audit that the council participated in, or was briefed on at least. We initiated a broadband planning study that some of the council members are a part of, or at least participating in. And then again, the body-worn cameras is a big, it's a very important item that the IT is working on. They also added some off shifts. A lot of the upgrades that they do to the system, they're trying to do when employees are not here, and so that has helped out as well. Challenges, to talk to Thomas, security is always on his mind, as we see some cities fall victim to security breaches, and that's something that he's working diligently on preventing within the confines of the budget. And again, rising costs, aging equipment, and we do have a lot of in-house applications. I mentioned earlier with Councilmember Dovey's question with our permitting software currently in-house. We're working on transitioning that out to something that's more flexible. This gives you an idea of how hard they're working. The per FTE of IT staff is relatively low compared to other cities. This next staff shows the same thing. So we are, as far as IT staffing goes, we're a little bit under where we should be, but we did add some, like I said, in the last budget, and that has helped out tremendously. But any addition to IT also, again, positively affects all departments. The challenges, again, common theme, cost of services are increasing, and so we'll need to keep that in mind. And then the Eden software that I mentioned earlier, and security. That's Thomas wanted to make sure that we mentioned that. So what is funded for this budget? We did include, and we sat down, just to pause here, we did sit down with each department and go through their wish list of everything that they wanted in the budget, and narrowed it down to things that we felt would be most effective to put in the budget for this time. Among those for IT was Microsoft 365 integration. This not only helps out the employees of the city, but helps IT staff with their working with Microsoft Office. It makes it much easier for them to help employees with their Microsoft Office suite issues. Increasing bandwidth and redundancy, and then the other one I would highlight is the IT governance structure. We don't have one of those in place, which is basically how the IT department relates to other departments, and how those needs and change control is governed. And so having that established would help out the efficiency of the organization. What's not in the budget? Here's some of the things that we did not include, but are things that are nonetheless on our minds, things that we need to deal with at some point in the future. Again, I won't go through each of those, but that's for your Again, security is something that they brought up. The fiber optic infrastructure, the locates of those is also, has been a periodic issue. And then towards the bottom, increased safe city maintenance operation to handle equipment failures and backing up disaster recovery. Again, redundancy, security are big themes with IT. Questions for IT?
All right, Councilmember Dovey?
So my one question, when I see desktops and laptop upgrade, does that mean that maybe we'll get better screens up here at the dais and better sound system in this area? Because as a guy sitting here, this is, maybe it's a personal ask, but it would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, we do have funding for that project as part of the Comcast Special Study Reserve. It's been something that we've been trying to tackle for many years, but haven't had it. This is as in EJ's world, is a very small project. In our world, it's a very large project. He's out building roads and stuff, and this is very intricate. You know, it involves not only council member participation about kind of the future, but we're talking about lighting, sound, all the equipment up here, all the integrations with streaming in the back. I mean, there's a lot to it, and it's a multi-part process. We have to design it first, then we have to go out to bid and get somebody to install it. In addition, now it's even everything is furtherly delayed, so it's not a fact of the money, it's the time right now. So, but yes, we do have the funding for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, with just the screens up here, I mean, I have the iPad, the city's iPad, fortunately, so that I can actually read what's here, because on the screen here, I mean, it's hardly readable.
Agreed.
So, I mean, it seems like that just getting the monitors wouldn't be that big a thing.
It isn't that big of a thing for new monitors, but the signal that's being fed to the monitor is still standard definition. So think of your TV back in the 90s versus HD today. So even if we got a 42-inch monitor and put it right there, it's still getting the same low resolution signal. So it really has to come with the equipment in the back as well.
Okay.
The big picture.
All right. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I hesitate to say anything, but I know we've talked about this every budget cycle, you know, upgrading this room. So with every passing year or month, your duties and your department duties become more complex. And this isn't a priority, which I understand, but for people who come to attend meetings here, it is a priority for them when they can't see the screens. Is this something that we can get funding for, to have a contractor come in and do? Or is this something that your department is?
It is. I'm
Eventually,
hearing.
I realize it's not a priority to run the city to upgrade this room, but eventually we're gonna have to do it. And we just keep not doing it. And I'm sure costs are increasing as that happens.
Yes, I'm hearing loud and clear from council the direction that they want to go. Like, this needs to be a priority, and so we'll make it a priority. The thing is, we don't do the design in-house, and we don't do the installation in-house. This is beyond, it's not something that we couldn't do, but the scope of running a ton of wires, because we have to rip everything out. So everything gets replaced because it's all over different cabling infrastructure now. That's beyond the scope of what we can tackle. So it will be a design piece of it because it's important. We can't just. This is a large enough project where we can't simply just say, oh, we want to get these type of cameras and these type of monitors, and then we'll just kind of figure it out, and we'll just buy some stuff and have somebody install it. This is something that we don't want, because it is something that the public depends upon, and it's something that the council depends upon, and the mayor. So, like I said, it's not an issue of funding. It's an issue of just getting the time. And so what I'm hearing, again, from 3 council members right now tonight is that that is a high priority. So we will course correct accordingly. And we'll get that as part of, we have funding this year to start that project. And so that'll be something that I will start working on now, is getting those pieces in motion.
I'm not suggesting that you start it, I'm just, because I know that you're overloaded as it is, I'm asking if someone else could do it instead of you.
Well, it's my group that is it. And it's the, going back to some of the, there was a slide here that that was covered about institutional knowledge. And unfortunately, I have two people really left at the city in my department that knows this room as well as anybody, and that's myself and Brian Pearson. And Brian doesn't know it as intimately as I do. When I started in 2003, this was my halftime. There was, Mehdi said you can help out on help desk and answer the calls and support people, and then you're also doing the nightly meetings. Like that was half of my task. And so just as part of that, when I started as part of my duties, I know this intimately. In fact, we've had issues with equipment failing in the past. And I was able to rob from municipal court an amplifier and come up here and plug it in midstream and bring the audio back, right? Nobody else on my team can do that. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. It's just we've lost the people that have kind of stepped up over the years and have understood this. So unfortunately, it kind of does have to start with me, but that's okay. It's an art of prioritization, and that's going into 21 and 22 budget. That was also something that we covered. You know, we're successful with prioritization. There are going to be some things that we have to do in lieu of others. And so, again, like I said, I'm hearing loud and clear tonight from council that this is a priority. So I'll make that commitment. We'll get this project going.
Thomas, can I piggyback on you?
Sure.
Finance and IT have been working, for a few months, because one of the things we wanted to make this budget process about was thinking long-term, and we've been working on developing long-term, rotational replacement kind of plans, and what's not in the budget. And so long-term capital planning, we've been partnering, and so I wanted to just edify what you were saying.
Thanks.
All right.
I was just gonna make the comment, I made my comment because we're in budget. The mayor runs the business. If it fits into our mayor's timeline and your timeline, home run. But I'm not saying drop things just to do it for the sake of doing it. But if it's in the plan over the next whatever, it would be greatly appreciated. It's hard to hear when you wear hearing aids, and it's hard to see when you're old. So, not really. But it would be nice if we got those upgrades sometime.
Okay.
We'll get there one day, Mayor.
Exactly. I'm working my way there. Exactly. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. One other thing, if I could add, just on the Eden system, there's a couple questions from council that came up, and I just want to follow up. We've had Eden in its obviously not its current form, but it's actually Eden financial software since 1991, and so that's actually quite a long run for software packages. It is very commonplace for them to have a shelf life and an end of support or production. They can't evolve the software anymore. And so just want to let you know, it's not something that we've only had for a couple of years. This is something that we've had since the 90s. The City of Renton also uses it among many other municipalities in this area. They were looking at actually budgeting potentially up to $2 million plus for that software. We do have some reserves, but again, when we bought it in the 90s, it wasn't a whole lot. So we have about a little over $300,000 in reserves for that, which won't get us all the way there. And we have had other issues. So we've had, the judge tonight, we transitioned to a new O-Court system because the Justware system became out of support. And same thing with Microsoft software, so that is very commonplace in the industry.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Brian.
Thanks. All right, oops. Okay. Okay. Next is the mayor's office, and this includes not only just the mayor's office, but clerk, HR, economic development, or emergency management. Probably one other I'm missing, but anyway, first with the mayor's office. Goals and objectives, it's okay, we don't need to go over that, what the mayor's office is responsible for. And there's an increase to, because the clerk and the HR fall under the mayor's office, and I'll get to these in a minute, but the budget does propose increasing a part-time human services technician to full-time, and adding a public records officer position to the clerk's office. And I'll get into those when we talk about the HR and clerk, and then adding a city administrator position as well to the mayor's office. Any questions on that? This is just the mayor's office. Okay, HR. This is Vanessa's group. This is her staff. Again, she's 3.5 staff. So for a city of our size, that is a little bit small. This is what HR does. Won't get into that, but know that they are very busy, especially with the staff that they have. Key accomplishments, I'm going to highlight just a few of these. They basically, ones that I want to talk about is they added benefit options for employees, including a Roth plan, employee-funded retirement saving options. They manage the wellness program and are looking into that further. Their ongoing collective bargaining agreements that they lead and negotiate, implemented the salary survey from Cabot Dow, which was a big endeavor. And then one thing that I would note is implemented NeoGov. Speaking of software, this is a software tool that HR now has, and I, as a hiring manager, have been involved with a couple of these now, and it's a very much more efficient process than it was before, and really glad to have that on board for all applicants and hiring managers. And then it eases the burden on HR tremendously because they don't have to do nearly as much. A lot of the monitoring is automated through the program, so that's been helpful to them. Goals is to one of them is to look at work with our insurance broker on reviewing medical plan options. In my previous city, the city manager at the time asked me and a team to look at what we had at the time as far as benefits go, and we found that by switching providers, we saved enough money to buy a new fire engine for the city. The city had its own fire agency, so there's potential savings to be had. It could turn out that our current program is the best, but it's always good to shop and to see what is out there. And then continue with looking at our salaries and making sure that they're competitive. HR does much more, and I'm just touching a few of these, so I don't want to minimize what they do, but that's a few of them. So challenges, staffing is one of those. We talked a little bit about that. We are proposing that one of the admins increase from 0.5 FTE to full-time. There was a situation that I was involved with. This was several. We have an excellent admin, by the way, in place right now, but this was a few admins ago, and I think it might have been in transition. There was a vacancy at the time, and I was hiring. And one of the applicants, there was a mix-up with the interview, and the applicant was really frustrated, and he emailed me kind of upset, said I don't want to work for a city that can't even set up an interview. So again, it wasn't, I think this was in transition time, and it was difficult because there was such low staffing, and so we're proposing that this be increased to full-time. And this is an easy add in my mind, because again, what this does is it affects all departments and helps them. The turnaround time, because of the turnover that we're seeing, this reduces the recruitment and hiring process if we get HR more support. Anything you want to add, Vanessa, on that? Okay, all right, yes. All right, city clerk, likewise, similar theme there. This is the clerk's office, Stephanie, who's faithfully at every meeting. And she has 2.5 staff, right? Katie's half-time, right? I'm sorry?
1.5 plus me, so 2.5 total.
Right, 2.5, yeah, 2.5 staff. Okay, so the clerk's office, there's a lot of details that go into running a public meeting, and the clerk and her staff are basically make that happen, and it reduces the friction points between the public and the elected body, and they are the ones that provide the easy access from the public to you, the elected leaders, in forms of access to meetings, access to agendas, and other documents, which are elections as well. They maintain all the contracts. They help make sure that the code is in the where it needs to be. All the hearing examiner proceedings that we do, and then again, the public records. This is a theme that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Again, this is more for your information of what they do. Sorry, Stephanie, I don't want to minimize again what you do. We're trying to get through this. So, public records. We do a lot of public records. I was preparing for this meeting. I looked at the slide. I counted how many records that I thought I may have created just in today. So I counted my emails, and as of 3 minutes before the meeting, 97 emails, 11 phone calls, and then all of these presentations that you're viewing. So that's just one employee. So just there's a constant generation of records that the city has to keep track of and have accessible to the public. And it becomes an increasingly burdensome task for the clerk's office to make sure that this goes smoothly. There's great risk involved. So, and there's cost to it. Did I? Okay, yes. There's cost to it. That's calculated for you. We can't charge for recovery costs, so it is just one request. The average cost of one request is $840, so it's not cheap to do for us to provide that service. So this budget does propose a public records officer. This will be, again, this will be a huge benefit, not just to the clerk's office, but to all departments, because when a request comes in, and let's just, because I'm up here, let's just say it's a community development request, so then it has to go to the staff that I have dedicated to that request. Then they have to inquire of any records that we might have immediately available, or to staff that might have access to it. And having the single public records officer would provide tremendous continuity to that effort, such that the burden of the public records within each department would be exponentially reduced, because the one officer is reducing the burden of all departments. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. So this would be this is in the budget, and it will be a huge help to us as Stephanie's group, but also as a city as a whole. Election costs are on the rise. Unfortunately, all municipalities are feeling the brunt of this. When we have things on the ballot or things that affect us, we have to, because of the increased costs, we have to cover them. Just in the last, I don't know if this is, yeah, this is on the slide, that first paragraph. So average for the last 5 years is $275, and just last year was, or excuse me, in 2021 at least, it was $415. So this was way above what we normally are, and we're only going to see that stay high. And so we're proposing an increase to cover that increased cost of $100,000 each of 23 and 24. Inflation is an issue as well, as I mentioned, with all the other departments. Questions on the clerk's office, if any? Yes.
Councilmember Seppa Dawson, and then Deputy Mayor. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so I want to thank the mayor for including the public records officer. Thank you very much. I know it's something we've talked about for a while. Will that person take then the responsibility so that, for instance, Amy in our office won't have to search?
Yep.
That is amazing.
she may still have to do some searching, but the coordination and upfront checking will be done by the public records officer, such that she will probably do a lot less than what she does now. I don't know if is that correct?
Yeah, that's accurate. So right now we have 37 and a half employees who actually work on public records in citywide. That's just for City Hall, not including police. So this one person will be the point contact for the public. So they're the ones who send out all the notices, get clarifications from the requester, send out records, accept in questions, things like that. They would set a task for, say, CD to say, I need these permit files. CD uploads them, sends it to the public records officer, and the public records officer either reviews them, redacts them, sends them out, that type of thing. So it's all being funneled through one person rather than the 37 and a half people that are currently working on it.
So I remember when the Weyerhaeuser property was sold and the constant public records requests that came in from that, have they decreased since then, or have they increased?
It's not necessarily that they've decreased in the amount, it's the complexity. So one of these slides, it says we have 21.5 million emails. So when we get a records request that's asking for emails, we're then asking IT to pull out and electronically search 21.5 million emails for search terms. Then we have to take those, my staff takes them and separates them by department. So then every department has 25,000 emails. Then we have to separate them by duplicate emails. So then we have to pull out all these things that are multiple staff are doing. So it's just more records, it's more time to search because it's the complexity of the requests that are coming in, not necessarily the volume of them. They're just taking longer to get through all the records that we have.
Okay, well, I'm glad that this will happen. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a longstanding request. I think it was in the previous budget. Yeah, exactly. And I, 2 years ago, I didn't see it. Now,
Now you see it.
now I do.
Your eyes have opened.
Exactly. I can see clearly now the rain is gone.
And we have more money.
Oh, exactly. That helps too. All right. Councilmember Sapadowson.
Yeah, a follow-up to that question, is one person even enough or sufficient for that role? Because the comparison there showed us that we were really not, we're not sufficiently staffed.
That was for HR. I'll let Stephanie speak to adequate staffing
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
supervision.
So-
Sorry about that.
I'm happy to get one person to start off. What it's gonna do is Jennifer, right now, my deputy, actually, as much as she does deputy work for me, she's also in charge of Laserfish and GovQA. So this will lift off the GovQA, the public records portion of it, so that she can focus on actual records management and getting things out of storage, getting things to the Secretary of State, and things like that, staff-wide, that she can help with it. We just are not getting to right now because we're just bogged down with records requests.
Thank you. I had another question, but I forgot, so I'll come back to it. Thank you.
All right. All right, anything, let's go. Let's continue.
Okay, economic development, also out of the mayor's office. Oops. Okay, so accomplishments, these are some of the accomplishments that were done by the previous economic development director, Tim Johnson, when he was here. And goals is, so we had the document, the 5-year Some Assembly Required document. We would build upon that. It was a great base to build upon, to look, when people wanted to look at Federal Way and what we needed to do to recruit, retain, and expand businesses. And so we want to look into that and then also help out with some of the childcare efforts that we're making, especially as we talked about with ARPA, the economic development. We kind of tied that discussion the other day into economic development, so they would help with that. And then, so I'm sorry, the first bullet point is to hire the director. So a few of you, I believe, are going to help out with some interview panels for that recruitment, which are happening here at the beginning of next month. So we hired a search firm to do that. We got 4 candidates, 3 of whom are out of state. So we're looking forward to a good interview process for that position. This is their budget, so I'm not going to, again, get into details. This is not necessarily a change from previous year. There's a slight increase. And then, okay, questions on on economic development?
None.
Okay.
Actually, Councilmember Dovey?
Could you go back one slide for me?
Yep.
One more.
Okay.
So, it seems like the third point would be under human services. Am I missing something? This is under economic development, or?
They work in,
there
work
was
in
some overlap.
partnership. Yeah, they work in partnership. A lot of the weight is carried by community services, but there is some, Tim Johnson, previous director, and Sarah worked very closely
Right,
on this
okay.
effort.
It just seems to me when you're talking diversity, equity, diversion, childcare, it's not under economic development. They may work together, but it would be more under the human services, but I.
Yeah, there was a
just
lot
want
of,
clarification.
because there was childcare deficits, but actually, Councilmember Norton, go ahead.
What does diversion through childcare operators mean? What does that mean?
Wanna-
We'll call a friend.
I
Tim?
could,
I'm just asking what it means.
she's gonna answer, but
I know what
rather.
diversity
Sarah
and
gets all the
equity
fun
mean.
questions.
Sorry, Sarah.
No, it's a good question.
We'll just keep Sarah moving back and forth.
And I'm not sure, I think it's supposed to be inclusion.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Deputy Mayor?
So when we hire the economic development director, will we then hire the other person in that department?
Yes, that'll be
And
one of,
then
that'll be
the
one of the
grant
first
writer?
tasks, yeah.
So are those positions already being advertised too?
The second one is not yet. So we anticipate the recruitment to, so what the dates are, the middle? 14th? Yeah. Yeah. So, but I think to your question, are we advertising yet to coincide with when they hire? No, we have not, but
Okay.
we'll time it such that it will be, because we don't anticipate hiring right on the 14th. It'll be some time before, especially if we hire one of the out-of-state ones.
So hopefully by January 1, we'll have an economic development director on board, and shortly
Yes.
after that, the other two positions.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, council, any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, emergency management. So this is a one-person operation, and it is within the mayor's office, and there's, to ensure that we're prepared to manage large-scale critical incidents. The priorities, again, to maintain the relationship that we have in the emergency management community. We're one player. It's a multifaceted approach when it comes to emergency management. The city is a key member of it, but it's one member nonetheless. Ensure the city continues to meet emergency preparedness needs, including training of staff and making sure that we're in compliance for any required training that we would need in the case of disaster, and then we would then, if the city would be eligible for reimbursement, we need to have staff that's fully trained. And so that's going to be on the emergency management's priorities. Any questions on that before we go into city council? Yeah.
Yeah, I think with our current emergency manager, he's been out
He
a
has,
considerable amount of
yeah.
time, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
We-
is that, what's the outlook there?
Deputy Chief Sumter is in that role now. We do not expect Ray to come back, unfortunately.
So are we going to be hiring a new emergency manager
We,
then?
Well, we're working our way through that. I think it's a premature,
yeah, that's exactly right.
I think because of the nature of, Ray's status and all of that, and I think it's premature to say that we're going to do that, but, we don't anticipate him coming back.
Okay,
Yeah.
enough said.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
All right, city council, this is the last one, I think, before we go into parks, sorry. Okay, so the notable numbers on the budget page, we did, the previous assistant, we did have to, they did have quite a bit of accrued leave before they departed, and so we had to pay that out, so that explains that one. And then we also moved the contribution that the city makes to the South King Housing and Homelessness Partnership, or SKIP. We moved that to community services. So that appears as a reduction on the city council budget, but is accounted for in community development. Okay, so I had a discussion with Councilmember Honda. This is it's not currently in the mayor's proposed budget, but it's certainly a discussion that we could have, and it's anticipated changes in travel patterns of the council that might have that would increase the budgetary needs for travel, helping out with the health fair and the senior commission, and then potentially converting the staff support to full-time, even though the current position is a full-time person, it's not full-time to the council. And so this is something that the deputy mayor brought up for discussion, which would then play into other needs of the city. So this is something that we talked about, that again, this is not in the current proposed budget, but is nonetheless something that that we discussed with Deputy Mayor Harden, and she wanted to talk about this a little bit.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Honda, and then Councilmember Dovey.
So the city council supports the senior commission, and the senior commission has two things that they need, that they are doing that will need some funding. One is a health fair, which is May of 2023, and hopefully we'll be using the Performing Arts Center for that. It'll be on a weekday, and something that is really needed in the community, and we're very excited about doing that, but there are going to be some costs with that.
Yeah.
And then we have a senior brochure that we are currently just completed our third printing of it. Steel Lake Presbyterian Church has been a huge contributor to making that happen, the printing happen. But the printing costs from the second printing to the third printing went sky high, like everything else. And the church gave us quite a sizable donation once again, but we had to put more money into it. And I anticipate that will happen for the next 2 years. So about every 6 to 9 months, I anticipate that we will be printing more of the brochures. We update them before we print new ones so that their information is as current as we can make it. But we'll need funding for that. We also will need to increase our dues to SCA, which in 2022, for the difference from 2022 to 23 will be $9,951.94. NLC dues will go from $9,415 to $9,697 from what I can see. I haven't seen any statements from either of these organizations, but that's what's online. And then AWC, their dues also went up because during COVID, everyone kind of kept things the same. And I cannot find, on the whole AWC page, I cannot find where their dues are for the cities. I'm sure it's hidden in there, but I know it went up. So we'll have to increase those two in the budget when we get those amounts.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Dovey.
I just have a comment. I understand all those associations go up, so we just need the numbers, but anticipated change in travel patterns, I mean, we need a number instead of a question mark, and I don't know what we're traveling to. So,
And that's-
and I'm not opposed to looking at it and all that, but
Yeah, and that-
they're here and it's
Sure, and that's
proposed.
my fault, Councilmember, but I just wanted to put that up there,
Yeah.
because Deputy Mayor did raise it, so I don't, this is my
Yeah, well, I think.
language here.
I think
so,
it's great
yeah.
that it's here. That's why we have budget
Yeah.
meetings, but we can't decide until we know what it is. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just want more information.
Yeah, let's run some numbers based on prior things. NLC is something that we've been going to, that the council has been very active in. AWC, let's run some numbers about what that looks like, 3 or 4 members per team. And then let's make sure, actually, can you two gentlemen work together, send an email out to council, let's make sure it gets up in the budget.
We've got a placeholder in the budget, and we can always adjust accordingly as we go.
Are we thinking about 5 to 10,000? Somewhere in there? Let's ballpark it
I
there.
would think so.
Let's start there as a de facto 5, maybe escalate to 10.
Sure.
Let's figure out where we're at, but let's make sure we get that in there, and please communicate with council. I think you're right, we gotta have hard numbers, obviously. We don't want to, you know, when we come back to this, we're going to have a whole bunch before us, so, and let's, when we come back before us, when we get down to the study sessions, let's have this as a checkoff item to make sure that we, because we're obviously televised now.
And maybe I have one more question that I don't understand. Full-time staff support, I always thought we had full-time staff support. So
Actually,
it's
no.
just moving it from one to the other? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Historically, you know, the council position has been split between half with council, half with, community development. And so this would actually completely give council a full FTE, which is, I think, been in the works for quite some time. I think the time has come.
And
That's right.
so what we would ask our person to do in city council would be to help us with policy. I've been talking about this all day. And I've actually had Amy doing some research this last week to see if she even likes doing that kind of stuff, if she wanted to stay with us, if this happens, that we could increase this position to full-time. So anyway, so the council over the last 6 years has been talking about someone to help us with policy, because that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So, and she liked it.
Great. That's right. Okay, great. Yeah, she's doing a great job. Okay.
So, yeah, so what we can do is take these requests, get some refined numbers, and then come back.
Very good. Let's do that. And do that follow-up by email first.
Sure.
Just put the marker down, and then when we, you know, to make sure that we, you know, make sure that everybody knows what's going on. Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Great job.
Oh, wait.
Oh, go ahead.
One last question. You're done with this, but where is the money for the federal and state lobbyists? Is that under finance or anticipating?
I think that might be in economic development. I meet with them every week, so I know it's in there.
Oh, good. I just want to make sure it was there somewhere. For
Yeah, it should
federal
be in
and
the
mayor's
state.
office.
Yeah, it's either mayor's
In
or
the mayor's
economic
office.
development.
Okay, that's fine. Just want to make sure it's in there. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Bill. Okay. Who's Bill? Oh, sorry. Thanks, Brian. Oh, my God. Jeez. It made sense when I said it. All right.
And no one questioned.
Exactly. I know. Isn't it? Thanks, Bob. All right. I'm confident you're John.
You can call me Al.
Exactly. Oh, nice line.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. A true rock aficionado. All right, go ahead. John Hutton, Parks Director. I know it because it's written down.
John,
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
John, your presentation's not being shared.
Presentation's
It's not
not
on
being
Zoom.
shared.
Share through Zoom.
You could call me Al. That's right. Boom, right there.
It's one in a row. Let's hold on to that.
Exactly. No, it's,
We good now?
it's,
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have a slightly different approach, but I will try to be brief in respect for your time and everybody else's. So thank you for the opportunity to let me share our budget with you tonight. And I'm honored and to lead a truly gifted and committed team of passionate parks and recreation professionals. I have brought our key leadership team with me here tonight. So I'd like to introduce you really quickly. I know that most of you know them, but some of you don't, and they're the reason for the magic. So in no particular order, Jason Gerwin, our Deputy Director, Community Center Manager Leif Ellsworth, Recreation Manager Cody Geddes, our new Dumas Bay Manager David Clemens unfortunately is out ill tonight and regrets that he couldn't make it, but our Community Relations Liaison Autumn Grusset is here, our Parks and Facilities Manager Derek Presno, and of course our great General Manager from the PAC is here, Brian Hoffman. So did I miss anybody? I don't believe I missed anybody. Okay, great. So with that, the mission of the Parks and Recreation Department is to build a better community through the stewardship and provision of programs and the stewardship of parks and recreation programs that enrich the lives of our citizens. And we try to do the best we can with that. The Parks Department is comprised of 42 FTE and well over 200 part-time temporary employees. We're a huge employer, we're a big department, and we'll go through it as quickly as I possibly can to give you time to ask any questions. Again, we are leaders in the state in inclusion, and it's a guiding principle in every program that we offer. We manage 34 parks, over 9 miles of trails, and maintain 1,100 acres plus of parks and open space. In addition, we maintain well over 300,000 square feet of facilities. We're a 7-day-a-week operation. We operate every day, 16 hours, and in the case of Dumas Bay, it's a 24-hour operation. Many weeks of the year, we have overnight guests in that building, as you know. A couple of fun and interesting facts about our department and how we perform overall. And during a non-COVID or non-pandemic year, our department recovers above 50%. The national average is just over 28%. So we're very proud of that. That's hard work. That's intentional management. Community centers like ours nationwide recover at 39.5%. We are currently, we hover right around or above 80%. So that's pretty amazing that that's in our system, and we're very proud of that. Again, that is intentional. We generate nearly $5 million in discretionary money. Nobody holds a gun to anybody's head and makes them be a member at the community center or take a program in recreation or do anything in our parks, a special event or anything like that. So it's all discretionary dollars. We have competition, which means we have to strive for excellence in everything and be the best customer service people we can be to get people to come back. And with that, we are a huge economic driver in our community. We bring visitors in to our many athletic tournaments, events, and facilities. So with that, we'll start the PowerPoint, and we'll go from there. You have the org chart in front of you. This represents these managers, these responsible managers from each division, and they are all doing a terrific job. We're very fortunate to have them. You can switch it. All right, department organization by fund. As you can see, we have 5 different divisions in our department. So we have parks and facilities and all the corresponding budget codes for that, including capital program. Switch. We have the recreation fund. It has everything in recreation. That's general recreation. Next. Federal Way Community Center Fund, Dumas Bay funds, and the PAC funds. Switch to the next. And our maintenance division. So we operate many things in parks maintenance. We would love to spend more time on preventative maintenance, but unfortunately we land a lot in corrective maintenance and reactive maintenance. We are charged with maintaining asset integrity. We inspect and maintain for compliance and safety across the city. We support recreation programming. Manage and maintain all city buildings and facilities, and we do community outreach and engagement through volunteer programs and events that most of you have attended. So thank you for that support. Accomplishments in maintenance, a lot to go through, especially in this pandemic time. They were absolutely key in coordinating safety upgrades across the city, everything from HVAC improvements to the plexiglass that you see, the air filters that are in front of the dais and are all spread through this building. We did a lot to make sure that our facilities were as safe as humanly possible during this very difficult and challenging time. We're just finishing up the coordination of temporary housing for our displaced parks workers who were as part of the maintenance facility, unsafe conditions regarding COVID. They've been living in their parks or in their trucks, as you know, and in broom closets across the city. We have now had a successful return to supporting full programming post-COVID. We replaced the roofs at Steel Lake Barn and the Sahali restroom buildings. We completed the demo of the Brook Lake mobile home and shed. We did the design and construction of the Veterans Memorial at the PAC. And we are just finishing the replacement of the Lakota parking lot with assist from Public Works, and the Sahali track is also in progress, and that will be finished here shortly. So we've been pretty busy. A couple of photographs to show you. I think you could probably all pick yourself out of that photograph. I think every one of you was there at the Veterans Memorial. And there's an example at the bottom right of some of the safety improvements that we did over in the community development lobby of the plexiglass to keep staff and the public safe. Recreation. So what does recreation do? Well, they provide accessible recreation and cultural services for our community, coordinate community events, provide services to enhance the health and well-being of our citizens, provide recreation inclusive services to individuals with disabilities and special needs. That's one of our biggest things that we're super proud of. And we provide spaces for rent, for business meetings, and all kinds of social events and celebrations. Recreation accomplishments. I'm going to be brief here and just highlight a couple, but these were pretty huge during COVID. Obviously, we know the detrimental effects of isolation and loneliness on kids and seniors and everybody in between. We really went the extra mile. Our staff really went the extra mile to work hard to get Friendship Theater, to keep that going for our adults with disabilities by switching to virtual. They did their practices virtually and were able to still have a performance. Something that we're very proud of. We offered senior meals to go. Many people don't know that we did that, but we jumped in. Our coordinators and managers were running meals all over the city during the height of COVID to make sure that people who were shut in, some of our participants and others in the community, were fed and nourished and had someone at least say hello to them so they knew they weren't going to suffer from too much loneliness. One of the other things that we're really proud of is we kind of became teachers during COVID. We ran a remote learning program for parents with children to, when schools were remote. A lot of kids didn't have the opportunities at home to have guidance and help on whether connectivity, understanding the technology, or even the lessons being taught by the teachers. So our staff became de facto teachers for weeks and weeks on end and did a fabulous job. And those parents were relieved to know they were in a safe place at the community center, getting good instruction from great professional people who cared about them and their well-being and their performance in school. We're very, very proud of that. We've increased our partnerships with Federal Way Public Schools. They were kind enough to sponsor 60 spots during our day camp, and that each week, 60 spots they paid for. So students or scholars could attend our day camp and have great leadership and great fun at the community center at no cost to their family. Very, very cool. And that resulted in 386 kids getting to go to camp that wouldn't have gotten to go. So really cool. We brought dance back, and that was a fantastic program. We had 25 kids get to a program that culminated in a choreographed recital. We were able to bring back tricks and treats. We did that in an outdoor environment. I know several of you visited that over at the park. Talk about tremendous support. 250 kids and over 600 people, when you count their family, were able to enjoy the event and have fun. And it was really quite a switch. So, we have to be innovative. We have to be quick on our feet, think outside the box. And this group and their staff just did a fantastic job. Next, please. Okay. That was 21. 22, I'll be more brief, but we are back to 100% normal in person for inclusion and senior programming. Our budgets are tracking at over 100%. We were able to hold on to all of those seniors and all of those folks with disabilities. That is something to be incredibly proud of. We got a lot of money in a SEEK grant, and we were able to spread that around and make that incredibly valuable to our community. We subsidized our day camp. And we were able to keep the cost all the way down to $100 a week, which made it great for families. And we were full every single week during the summer. And that resulted in 1,638 kids being able to go to camp. Pretty impressive. We also did a free teen program with SEEK grants in partnership with communities and schools. The Youth Commission has really stepped up recently and has done some cool stuff with a First Step Scholarship to help teens and members with memberships and recreation programs. We ran our first ever job fair to get summer help. We kind of had to think outside the box. It was really a struggle to get people. We did a job fair, and we were able to hire numerous people to help us in our summer programs, everything from park maintenance seasonals to day camp leaders and everything in between. I'm very happy about that. We also funded the mobile rec program. You've seen the van with the really cool wrap on it. We took that out for 9 weeks, visited parks, took the recreation to the people who couldn't get to us. So we're incredibly proud of all of these programs we did. Touch a Truck was back this year, phenomenal. Over 1,000 people attended. Many of you attended. Thank you for that support. And we brought Kids Day back for the first time since 2019. 25 community partners and over 1,500 people attended. So we're back and doing well. So next slide, please. Oh, I need to stage you for, I have a very limited amount of time with you, and it's very valuable. And I wouldn't spend this time normally if I didn't think this was incredibly important, but this is a small video that's going to play in a second. This is our day camp, our summer day camp this year, all young people, high school and young college students, that put together a 90-second video about camp, and it talks about all the lessons learned at camp by being a good citizen, by following the rules, and the rewards that you get from being a good citizen. Many of you are aware of our camp, but we put over 160 kids a week. We're one of the largest day camps in the state, and it is phenomenal. The mayor's son, Ben, was there for many years. It is a great program. We try to make it better every single year. This particular song was created, written, and set to music by our staff. It's original music, and so please enjoy for 90 seconds. Ruh-roh. Loud enough? We're going to try to go a little louder.
Mad in love with summer fun. Grab a fellow camper. You're not alone in the summertime. So let's all come together for a good time. The sun is out, going with the flow. Do your little dance, yeah, show us how you buffalo. Let's have a blast, but don't forget that if you're on your best behavior, get some camp cash. Got some brand new glasses from the camp store. If we work together, we could win that tug of war. We're playing tight, but I'm not it, so what you running for? When I say hey, then you say ho, you just can't ignore. Mad in love with summer fun. Grab a fellow camper and give them a hug. You're not alone in the summertime, so let's all come together for a good time. The sun is out, going with the flow. Do your little dance, yeah, show us how you buffalo. Let's have a blast, but don't forget that if you're on your best behavior, get some camp cash. And don't forget to bring your suits, we just might swim today. Or maybe hit the rock wall, you could get belayed. Stay in your colored grooves and follow all the rules. No running at the pool, that way we can keep it cool.
Thank you for letting me play that for you. That kind of encompasses what we do in a lot of ways with our kids and our general recreation program. That program is amazing. To run that, knowing that that's all happening at the community center around the members without trying to bother the members. So that's serious choreography to get 160 kids in different spots through that building, whether they're in the pool or on the climbing wall or in the gyms or in the community rooms, all through the day. And you can see by some of them, you saw them at Point Defiance. We take them on a field trip every week too. So pretty amazing program. The community center, speaking of that, so the community center just does a fantastic job of promoting fitness and health through dynamic exercise programming and state-of-the-art fitness studio. They do just so many good things. One of the things I'm most proud of their swim lesson program, which is terrific, and we'll talk about that in a second and what that really does for our community. But they provide a contemporary rental venue for all kinds of celebrations. We do everything from weddings to memorial services to quinceañeras, birthday parties, anniversary parties, retirement parties, every kind of thing you can imagine that we do there, just like we do at the PAC and just like we do at Dumas Bay. And we serve as the venue for a lot of our general recreation programs, athletics, and senior services. Next, please. Accomplishments at the community center. Again, grants. You're seeing a lot of grants coming in. We've done a great job of getting grants. They received a $250,000 grant from King County, and that is been applied to the slide project that's underway right now as we speak and should be done by the end of the year. We served over 6,800 kids and taught them to swim. That's pretty amazing in a state that's surrounded by water. We can give parents peace of mind, and we can open up doors for children to boat, kayak, fish, all kinds of areas to make them competent in the water and give parents peace of mind that their child is not going to become an unfortunate statistic. We continued recovery of membership post-pandemic. Revenues have returned to already about 80%, which is really good considering the fears of people being in an indoor facility. We're really doing well. They're not coming back for the facility. They're coming back for the way they're treated. And we've exceeded our retention rate by 15% to more than 65% from 21 and 22. That is terrific. A lot of people, as you know, in a fitness environment, they said, oh, we're never getting back, or who knows when this is ever going to end, I'll buy a Nordic track, or I'll buy an elliptical, or I'll buy a treadmill for my house. And they give up their gym membership. But we have held ours at a much higher level than the industry standard. And the reason for that is, again, it's really not the equipment, it's the way they're treated. So it takes an enormous amount of work to have this much fun. This is just our people getting ready for the Tricks or Treats event. Those are all our staff. Next area is Dumas Bay Center. So with Dumas Bay Center, we provide a regional conference and retreat facility. It does a great job. We provide high-quality rental space for private events and occasions. We manage our only passive use park there, and we run a food service program that does a really good job. Some of the accomplishments at Dumas Bay during this time, we changed our food model from the in-house chef to a contracted caterer for lunch and dinner service. One of the other things I'm really proud of, and Autumn Gressick gets a lot of credit for this, we took a room and remodeled it that was there, an underused room, small conference room that was very rarely used, and we turned it into a dynamic continental breakfast area. That breakfast is getting so many compliments. People absolutely love it. We produce the breakfast in-house, which serves guests in the building more efficiently and is more cost-effective and predictable in a time, as you all know, when you go to the grocery store, everything's going up. It's much more predictable food costs. We took the time to repaint every single overnight room in the building during COVID. That way, when we knew when we reopened, it would have a nice sparkle to it. And another very important piece of this is we have completely successfully rebooked every returning group. All of our long-term returning clients are all back, and we're back to pre-pandemic levels of bookings. Just a couple shots of Dumas Bay. Obviously, we've all been there and love the views. And the next area is, this is a org chart, and obviously it goes without saying that the mayor and city council would go at the very top of this. I left that out, my error, but that goes without saying. And you'll see Brian Hoffman, our general manager, is here this evening. We're very fortunate to have Oakview, also formerly Spectra. They have just done a terrific job, and we'll go through some of their things. He and his staff have just done a brilliant job. So obviously, the purpose of the PAC is to integrate the arts more fully into our community. All of our artists are being celebrated in many ways over there, and Brian and his team continue to reach out and have done a great job. We know that arts organizations stimulate business and economic growth in our area. By providing a regional performing arts and events center, it enhances our economic development, and our future downtown just keeps getting better. The future, as light rail comes in and the economic development in that area goes, the PAC is going to be just a keystone in that. They manage a food service operation that's top-notch, and we leverage the city subsidy as a program benefit multiplier. The July MFR indicates that for every dollar we spend, we get 2.5 back already, and we know that that subsidy will only continue to get better, and that relationship will continue to get better as we come out of the pandemic and get back into a full-fledged life. Some of their accomplishments. This is some of the things I'm very proud of Brian and his staff about. They maintained revenue generation throughout 20 and 21. Well, how do you do that in a venue that's essentially shuttered and an industry that's almost completely shut down? Well, you do that by being really creative and really smart. And Brian did some great job. He went out and recruited Amazon for driver training. We were able to do socially distanced, safe learning in a classroom situation, and then he was able to utilize the parking lot at another fee for their truck driving or van driving skills development. We ran King County election site there. We were a COVID vaccine site. We housed, many of you may not know this, but the PAC during the raging COVID was able to house 3 different department staff in a socially distanced, safe manner. So they managed to help staff some finance people from our finance department, the HR department, and also community development staff were over there, which made that for a safe environment, and it was great. We have recently completed the art project. The art bed is, Deputy Mayor knows that's a very important thing. She's thanked us publicly for that. It looks great, as well as the restored the landscaping across the whole property. It looks great. They were awarded $531,000 in the shuttered venue operators grant. They completed their first season of Mission Community Nutrition, which is a very good program. We're very excited about that. Autumn gets a lot of credit for that. And they also got awarded $25,000 from King County COVID Recovery Grant. So they've been busy, and we're back on track to do great stuff. A couple of other highlights from 21. They received 95% favorable rating on customer service surveys. Again, they served as a South King County vaccine site for 2 weeks, which who knows how much disease that prevented. And they also served as a PPE distribution site. So they've been very, very busy. Even though the building was kind of technically closed for a while, they were very much open and present. Shameless plug here for the 4th Annual Gala coming up, including one night in Memphis. I know many of you will be attending that, so look forward to seeing you there. So challenges to the department. Ongoing challenges continue to be staffing, obviously, due to the competitive market. And I can't express to you how grateful we are for the 3 maintenance workers that are proposed. That is a major step forward for our department. It is fantastic, and we can definitely get a lot more done, so thank you very much for that. But even with that, we will remain understaffed and have to continue working on this in future budgets. Inflationary impacts, just like all the other departments mentioned tonight, will continue to be a problem. The staffing challenges and resources challenges to keep up with aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance over the last 15, 20 years is real. Climate change is real, and you can see it in our trees and our vegetation across the system. Competition for resources will not be, this won't be the last time that everybody's competing for limited resources. We understand that. Homeless impacts such as vandalism, theft, and destruction are real. Environmental degradation due to homeless is real. And we're not able to keep up on certain things like mandated programs. So we're working at it, we're trying, and we're going hard every day, but we can't hit everything. So. Unfunded future demands, dedicated funding, we would like to propose someday, if we can, getting to a spot like Public Works is in, where they have the overlay program, where a certain amount of money is dedicated to maintaining the infrastructure, much rather than letting it degrade all the way to zero and starting over. As we know, it's much cheaper to change the oil in our car than replace the engine. Same with the roads, much cheaper to resurface than it is to rebuild. Again, homeless impacts probably not going away tomorrow, so that's a reality for us. Part-time staff and recruitment is very challenging. While we were open full-time at the community center for a while, we were unable to really get to capacity because of a lifeguard shortage. We've addressed that through some creative thoughts from Leif Ellsworth over at the community center and his staff. They did some great things to increase our lifeguard staff. Some of you may have heard that there is a huge outcry for outdoor pickleball courts. Pickleball is the #1 growing sport in the United States, in the world actually, and we don't have a lot of outdoor courts. We only have really one outdoor court. And then there's a shortage of outdoor basketball courts. We know as our demographics change, there'll be a higher need for that, and part-time recruitment will always be a priority. So next dollar priorities, difficult conversations will need to occur around prioritizing our extensive deferred maintenance backlog, as opposed to adding new amenities without appropriate supporting budget and staff. And the aging infrastructure across the city needs to be addressed, as everybody's kind of talked about. And Thomas is in IT, that's all part of the same problem. We're all in the same boat. So with that, I am happy to entertain any questions, and I have staff here if you have any questions at all. I appreciate your time.
Deputy Mayor and then Council President.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And yes, I am very happy that the art garden
So are we.
is done and looks awesome. Thank you so much for that. So 3 maintenance workers, I don't see that in the information I have in front of me. That's for the PAC,
No, that is for the Parks
for the
Department.
Parks Department?
Correct.
Okay, good, okay. Mandated programs for ADA, what are we not meeting?
There are many mandated things like curb cuts. Jason, feel free to jump in if you'd like. But curb cuts are some that we've gone for AWC grants for the last 3 years and unfortunately have been turned down. And so curb cuts are one that, they're extensive. Any other examples?
Yeah, and so the federal government has mandated an ADA transition plan, and so Public Works is working on their side of the transition plan. they still have a long road to go before their plan is even complete, where we're in communication with them, but we don't have like a capital projects manager, or we haven't really been doing much work on that other than trying to apply for some AWC grants or ROC grants to, update our crossings and just anything with pathways. You go to Steel Lake Park, that parking lot was designed, 30 or more years ago, and ADA wasn't even to effect. So we in the Parks Department, need to be looking at these longer term things, and we haven't even started on that plan, and it's something that is hugely valuable because we need to get our infrastructure moved along, but we're so deferred and have such a backlog that doesn't even rise to the occasion. But a capital projects manager or what historically has been called a parks planner would be someone that could fill that role in our department. We just don't have it. We lost that in the 2008 downturn in the economy.
Okay. Trees and streets. We have some streets that the trees, the roots are going into the streets. And I know that's, the trees, I think, are on you guys, and the streets are Public Works, or?
It depends.
Well, yeah, and that totally depends. So I can give you a perfect example of where we have some street trees and they are causing ripples in the asphalt. That is a parks problem. That's at Celebration 7 and 8 parking lot. You drive in that parking lot, it's bump, 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 bump. Those are our trees from the park, and they're impacting our parking lot. And so, yeah, some capital improvements need to be there. Now you go by First Avenue and the public library, you have some street trees in the middle. Those are Public Works street trees, and it's their roadway. So that is their issue. We have problems in both departments on numerous properties, and that's just something with that capital infrastructure. And so with us probably getting about, for round numbers, about $400,000 in capital, $200,000 of that is going into replace playground each year, and then the other 167 is going into major maintenance. And major maintenance is kind of our reactionary account where, hey, something breaks, we weren't expecting it, we need to have a little pot of money to go grab to fix it because we don't have another source. And so that's where in the budget presentation we talked about getting some sort of dedicated funding for these backlogs and deferred maintenance is something that we're going to have to grapple with as a council and as a staff to come up with a solution, because the problems and the maintenance isn't going away. It's either going to be that or we're going to have to shut facilities and just eliminate those services.
So the street in front of Celebration Park, by the softball fields?
Yes.
Or the baseball fields, the routes are pretty significant. I mean, it's like speed bumps, and it's just one street that.
That's 1/4 mile stretch, Susan, and
And
we have
it's-
got a lot more. And so the thing that's different is that portion of the road is technically considered Park Road, and that's a park's responsibility. When we did the cut through by there's a church right there, that new church that went in from there. When Public Works added that roadway, they took on 324th to that curve around. But that used to be a Parks road that Parks had to maintain. But now that it's full and part of the traffic patterns, Public Works take care of it. But from that corner, that stop sign, all the way to like the end of 7 and 8, right around the playground, that's still a Parks road, and that road is our responsibility. And so, like I say, we need to get creative with only $400,000 of capital money. We can't even touch roads.
Yeah.
You got 11.8 million in the overlay program. And so, does it make sense to have all of Parks asphalt rolled into that overlay program so that at least it's getting accounted for and it's on the inventory and comes up for its turn? Because right now, it has never had a turn in my tenure, or I think my previous person in my previous position's tenure. It was originally put in, and it's.
Well, long term, it's repairing the streets because of the trees, which is going to be an issue. But one last thing.
Sure.
A park, an inclusive park for a city our size. I know we have one toy at Steel Lake, and the big toy at Steel Lake, the big structure, is awesome, but it isn't truly accessible to everyone because of the ups and downs in it and the narrow spaces. And I know one day we will have a park, for an inclusive park here, But I'd like us to at least start putting it on the list and dreaming about it and seeing what we can do to get that going and get community partners to help us with it.
Susan, I think that's a great dream. Again, to me, that's something you need to master plan. You know, for me, we've still got Steel Lake Park, which is something we've needed to master plan my entire tenure, and just never been given that ability or that funding to make that happen. But with the limited funding, it's amazing what we're able to accomplish in the Parks Department, and so I would be open to further conversations on how we can get some more funding to the Parks Department, maybe some dedicated funding, because you give us a little bit more money, we're going to do a lot more.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for what you do.
Council President.
So, just a suggestion, I know that you're overwhelmed with maintenance and planning and not enough money, not enough staff, but we're coming up on planning for next year. A lot of our citizens during COVID either didn't get married, or they went up on the mountaintop, or they went to barns or outside areas. So what they're now used to is going to an outside area for the wedding, and then going to an inside area for the, like in the barn, or in a house, or for the reception, and because the cost is so much. But, you know, if you could pick either the PAC or the community center or the Dumas Bay, and just plan ahead. For example, the Rose Garden at Tacoma Point Defiance. It's an enclosed area with beautiful flowers all around, roses and dahlias.
Very familiar with it.
And then they would put up white chairs, maybe 100, for a wedding that would last 2 hours. And then they take that, you know, the next person, it's $500 for the couple hours. And then the next party comes in, another $500. So it's a revenue generating. It's all on grass, it's not on sidewalk. But, you know, that's a revenue generator. I remember years ago, it had to have been at Dumas Bay, where they had, you could rent like a gazebo or a trellis or wooden painted, white painted things you could put lights on, and use those for your wedding reception. Some ideas. So if you just planned ahead and got into the wedding circuit and started with one building and maybe started to have a revenue generator. I know that at the community center, it's kind of on a slope.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were able to have a gazebo or some kind of a trellis outside with flowers, you could have a wedding outside, and whether or not they went inside for the reception or not, that's an option.
Mm-hmm.
Or at Dumas Bay, it's perfect, of course, but it's kind of plain. It doesn't have a lot of flowers around the gazebo. Just kind of some design planning, and then start marketing. But just a suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
the
we
gazebo
did,
there.
we did commit that we will be sending members of all three of those staffs to the wedding, the Tacoma Event Show, I believe is the one, Councilmember Walsh, we talked about, I believe.
Yeah, the Northwest Event Show.
Northwest Event
Yeah.
Show.
Yeah, if you could have some sort of, you know, a presence there, I think is critical. But some sort of gazebo there, like at that grass location, I think you could probably really turn up your business.
It was in the original plans, wasn't it, for the site to have the gazebo?
For at the community
there?
center?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do, just so everybody knows, we do a fair amount of weddings at the community center now. And we do a fair amount of weddings at Dumas Bay, and we do a fair amount of weddings at the PAC currently. But hearing loud and clear an improvement there, we'd have to safeguard it, obviously. That's can be a challenge, but it can be done.
What's a fair amount? What
Leaf,
numbers are
how
we
many?
talking
About how many weddings do we do at the community center?
Currently, we're hosting anywhere from about 50 to 75 weddings a year. It kind of depends on, and some do go outside now. We are attending the Seattle Wedding Show, and we are going to be doing some staging outside, taking pictures to sell that. So that's already in progress.
That's at
The community
At the
center.
community center, yes.
That's one per week.
Yeah. At least.
And then Dumas Bay, you know, if they could have a large outdoor tent that could seat more than 90 people would be awesome for dinners, but
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, that's got some
Yeah.
challenges to it, but.
I know. All right, thanks.
Councilmember Dovey and then Councilmember Walsh.
A couple questions. You had 1,638 kids at camp this summer, correct? What is our max? How many could we actually serve?
1,639.
Okay.
We were pretty well
So, I
packed.
mean, if we wanted to double it, are we able to do that?
No, absolutely not.
That's the most we can do in the city?
That is that choreography I spoke about.
Yeah.
Where we're trying to run a membership facility too.
Yeah.
So we're doing groups of 18 to 24 kids with their staff that's dedicated to them. And those kids are maybe 2 hours in the gym and then an hour on the climbing wall, and an hour in the pool, and an hour at the park in good weather, so.
How many children did we turn away?
Cody, do you have the feel for that?
This year, because we had the grant funding and camp was only $100 a week, we cut our waiting list off at 20 kids, and nobody dropped off the list. So, I mean, we had a waiting list, but that's only because we were offering camp at $100. When it goes back up to the regular price of $225, unfortunately, we do price out.
How much was the grant?
It was $189,000, I believe, to
So
offset.
why aren't we asking for 189,000 in our budget?
At Point Defiance.
I mean, I'm just, if we serve that many kids and it's that important, why isn't anybody asking for that money?
We need to be getting it.
Well, the program has traditionally been pretty full at full price. The grant was obviously made available to help people through COVID and after COVID.
Right, I understand.
So,
I mean, it
I mean,
seems
the people are willing to pay for that service and have paid for that service. And we have programs in place to help scholarship and help fee reduce on parents who might need a little assistance to get in there.
So the answer is, we're gonna fill it anyway, and, I mean, it seems like a great program. It would seem like something we'd wanna be doing more of in our community for people that need it. So anyway, so I have three more questions.
Okay.
If you had money for pickle courts, how much would it be and where would you put them?
Well, we've talked about a couple of different things. Number one, there is a way to transition tennis courts, existing tennis courts, which we have a shortage of good tennis courts. So they would need to be resurfaced and then repainted to accommodate pickleball. That is one option, to do a retrofit on existing pickleball courts. But then we don't have a plethora of tennis courts either, so now you're cutting your nose off to spite your face a bit.
Sacagawea, you're gonna get rid of the ones at Sacagawea probably, or whatever. I mean, there aren't that many in Federal Way. tennis
No,
courts.
Sahali and Sac, and then Adelaide. Is there any others? It's 312th Sport Court, that's about it. I said Adelaide. Oh, Alderdale. Alderdale's completely in disrepair, so. So we have the opportunity to do some tennis courts, and then we've talked about, which will be a topic on Thursday, if, depending on what council determines to do regarding the current maintenance site, which will be vacated, if we were to keep that, we would likely put some pickleball courts there.
Oh,
At
the
the
six.
current site, once that becomes vacated.
Okay, two more questions. I think this is a discussion we should have in our budget. You know, we just got rid of the school impact fees, which is causing great interest in our community. We probably need to have the discussion of a park impact fee. I hate to say that, but, you know, we're talking about many people coming in over the years, coming up with 168 townhouses coming in that haven't been permitted, you know, what's gonna happen in the downtown redevelopment zone with the multifamily, the redevelopment at the mall potentially, what's gonna happen up at TOC. I mean, we should, as a council, probably say, we're gonna, whatever that number is, that's how we fund our parks. Because all this building's gonna come in and it's, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000 units over time. You know, even if it's only $1,000 per permit, I mean, that's $4 million that goes to this kind of infrastructure. So we need to have that discussion. I bring that up. And then the one thing I saw, I was in Cody, Wyoming the other day. And in their little park, they have a free putt-putt golf course for anybody to use. They had balls there and little things to get golf clubs. I don't know. Might be something on the wish list somewhere for free recreation for people that want to take their kids under the new light rail and play putt-putt golf on a grassy place.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah, I think that all of you know that our parks are very dear to my heart, and I think that the idea of a very minimal park impact fee would be good to help finance the parks. I mean, we'd want to keep it small enough that it's not discouraging development in any way, but can help fund the parks and help with the infrastructure. That's one thing. Next, with the Leafy, I think you mentioned that with the community center is going to be attending the Seattle wedding show. All right.
Community Center, PAC, and Dumas Bay
Okay,
staff.
that
will all
was my
be-
question. Is the
all three
jointly-
staffs will be
okay, wonderful,
represented.
Wonderful. That is great, and I think that is very good. And then, as was mentioned, the Northwest event show is even more critical than with the wedding show. It's brides and their moms there. It's a one-time thing. With the Northwest event show, it's the event planners that it can be a multiple, that they're repeat customers, or bringing back repeat customers, and so that's critical. Let's see here. With the camp program, so about 1,600 campers this past year with a $100 thing. Pre-COVID, about how many were we? I mean, were we at that 1,600 plus?
Top of
mark
my
that
head, we were
pre-COVID?
running 140 then, but we found a way to squeeze another 20 in. Is that accurate, Cody? 150 was our average, so we didn't go up much because we don't have the space to go up much.
Oh, okay, all right. And you say that there are some need-based programs to
Absolutely,
help
yep.
with that? Okay, all right, that was my question there. Finally, John, you and I discussed this a little bit the other day, and I think that this is maybe more for the benefit of the council. But volunteerism, I think, is a important thing for our community. And, I mentioned the idea of having a volunteer coordinator in the city that can help with things. And you said that, well, hey, that's great, but it takes staff to be able to manage those volunteers. And I think that is something that we need to take a look at with our budgeting, is staff to be able to manage the volunteers. With volunteer projects, it accomplishes two things. One, the physical work that is done, the physical work that the volunteers doing, and that is really secondary. The biggest thing that it does is it helps create citizens who are concerned about our community and want to help in the community.
It's ownership.
And I think that ownership, yes. And I know that John and Jason, you've heard me tell this story before, but a number of years ago with the Parks Appreciation Day, there was a young man, I got this back, there was a young man walking home from Lakota school, and some of his friends wanted to tag some of the things there at Lakota and in the park. And he said, no, that's my park where we volunteered and we helped. And he had ownership there. And that is just one small example of the power of volunteering. And so I think that it is critical that I don't know whether we can do anything on this year's budget or not, but be looking at what needs to be done to promote volunteerism in the community, because that's what builds a community, or one of the prime things that builds a community.
I agree.
The work that they do is wonderful, but that's secondary.
Right.
The character that it builds in young people and in all people is the most critical part.
I agree.
So I've had my 2 cents worth.
All right, thank you very much. All right, are there any other questions of John? All right, thank you very much. Thank you for everybody in the departments. John, do you have anything else?
No, just thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope the video wasn't too over the top, but we felt it was important, so.
It was very helpful, very
Thank
instructive.
you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night.
Okay, now it's council questions or discussion. Anything for general discussion at this stage? Council? Okay, all right. All right, great job from all the presenters. Thank you very much. Brian Davis, we had a great presentation from the court. Thank you, John Hutton and team. With that, we are adjourned.